Recording in progress.
Nice. We're good. You ready to get started? If I would like to ask Captain Charles Barstow to lead us in invocation.
Thank you. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we ask for your presence tonight during this meeting and that you bestow blessings on all those gathered here this evening. We thank you for the opportunity to serve and guide this community that we are so fortunate to call home. Father, during this time together this evening, we pray for wisdom, insight, and a servant's heart for our elected officials, our city staff, and the community members that we serve. We humbly ask that you lead us tonight and guide our hearts and minds to be fair and just as we work collaboratively as good stewards for the community which you have entrusted us with. It is in your most blessed name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I would like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, February 7th, 2022 to order. The city strongly recommends that you review tonight's agenda carefully, and if you wish to speak on any item on the agenda, then please bring your comment cards to the clerk as soon as possible. While the Milton rules allow a speaker to turn in their comment card up until the clerk calls the agenda item, once the agenda item is called, no more comment cards can be accepted. Will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will be happy to call roll for the February 7th, 2022 regular meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to make a public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on the item. Your comment must be presented to the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. All speakers, please identify yourself by name, address, and organization before beginning your comment. If you are representing an organization, an affidavit is required stating you have the authority to speak on behalf of that organization. Please review tonight's agenda, and if you would like to make a comment, please bring your comment card to me now. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited. Please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Peyton Jamison.
Here.
Councilmember Andrea Verhoff. Here. Councilmember Paul Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Juliette Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Carol Cookerly.
Here.
Councilmember Jan Jokabis.
Here.
Councilmember Rick Morrig.
Here.
Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the city clerk please say on the next item?
That item is approval of meeting agenda, agenda item number 22-052.
Thank you. Council, we will need to add an executive session to discuss land acquisition, personnel, and potential litigation. Can I have a motion?
Mayor, make a motion, we amend the agenda to include an executive session, but the balance left as noted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the meeting agenda as amended by Councilmember Moore and a second from Councilmember Cookerly. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Madam Clerk, is there any general public comment this evening?
Yes, there is. I would like to call Chris Owens to the podium.
Okay, let me read our rules for public comment. The next item is general public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and the city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Please remember that this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone, stating your name and address for the record. You will have 5 minutes for remarks. The city encourages you to review the agenda, and if you wish to speak, to bring your comment cards to the city clerk right now. Madam Clerk will announce the first public comment.
I would like to call Chris Owens to the podium.
Madam Clerk, thank you. Mayor, council, thank you for having us here tonight, and we'd like to thank you for your service to the community. I know what the sacrifices you make to do that, and it's not easy. It's a thankless job, so we appreciate that. My name is Chris Owens. My address is 7425 Mid-Broadwell Trace, just off Charlotte Drive, walking distance to Crabapple, but I'm an Alpharetta resident. I'm here tonight to express some concern over one of the items on your consent agenda this evening. It's agenda item number 22-056, lettered D on the agenda handout provided to the public tonight for your reference. It's an agreement between the city and Lowe Engineers to study the concept of constructing a new road from Broadwell Road over to Charlotte Drive. And as I said, our neighborhood's just off Charlotte. We got some concerns about that. The biggest concern being the impact to the community and the surrounding properties on Charlotte that a new roadway connection could bring. I understand you're considering a contract for a concept plan, which I believe is the first step in a process such as that. But I've had 4 of my neighbors come to my doorstep today expressing concern about it, and spoke to 2 others this evening. There's some others here tonight to express that concern. So just ask that you proceed cautiously with that. Our neighborhood area has been very closely guarded from a character standpoint, and it's kind of a transitional rural area in between downtown Alpharetta and downtown Crabapple, and we're very concerned about that and would like to protect that. Appreciate your diligence in listening to those concerns. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you. Any other public comments?
We have another. I would like to call Dan Lingard to the podium.
Hi, good evening. I'm Dan Lingard. I live at 12470 Charlotte Drive in Milton. And I'm also here to speak on the same item Chris just spoke about. And the proposed road, as I understand it, I know it hasn't been put into plat yet, where I can see exactly where on the property it'll be at 12450, which was my previous next door neighbor. But it would run, I believe it will run adjacent to my property for probably 2/3 of the length of that drive. I have some concerns about it. First one being, I believe the last traffic study that was done was in 2009. Since then, there's been a lot of improvements, including like the roundabout at Mayfield and the one up here, I think it's called Heritage. And I would say in our neighborhood, we've seen an improvement of traffic from that. So I'm wondering if there would be another traffic study done prior to considering this to warrant whether it's even necessary, would be one thing. Second thing would be, are there other traffic options that could be considered, like a roundabout at Crabapple Corners, or other measures I haven't even thought about because I just learned about this today, which actually makes me ask another question. As someone who would be, very directly affected by this. Do you typically, or does the city typically notify those neighbors when something like this is done to give them an opportunity to look at it in advance and understand what's being proposed within, probably 20 feet of my property or whatever the setback is? And then the last one is, obviously property value concerns. We're one of the few horse farms left in this immediate area. We have a little over 4 acres. We have an active equestrian farm with 2 horses on it. And that road would abut right along our house. We'd probably have to put up a privacy fence now because we have a swimming pool back there. And I have concerns about a road like that running along right next to my pasture, which for years has just been a woods. And I know Milton prides itself as being an equestrian community, and I'm just concerned about that. I have no further comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no more general public comment.
Okay, thank you. That will close the public comment. And in regards, we'll talk to staff on responding to some of these questions, as this is just our concept design phase. So moving on to the consent agenda, will the city clerk please sound the items?
Thank you, Mayor. The first item is approval of the January 19th, 2022 regular city council meeting minutes. Agenda item number 22-053. B, approval of financial statements and investment report for period 2, November 2021. Agenda item number 22-054. C, approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Contour Engineering, LLC, for post-remediation air clearance and roof inspection of Milton Fire Station 41. Agenda item number 22-055. D, approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Low Engineers, LLC, for the concept design for the proposed road between Broadwell Road and Charlotte Drive. Agenda item number 22-056. E, approval of change order number 1 between the City of Milton and Ross and Associates to amend the agreement by adding additional cost for services for the amendment of the city's impact fee program. Agenda item number 22-057. Item F is approval of subdivision plats and revisions. Development 1 is Metropolitan Properties of Georgia, located at 14260 Cogburn Road, Land Lot 478, District 2, Section 2. It is a minor plat to subdivide the parcel into 2 tracts. Lot 1 will contain 1.510 acres, and Lot 2 will contain 1.927 acres, with a total of 3.437 acres and a density of 0.58 lots per acre. Development 2 is Ansley Park, large lots, located at Thompson Road and Champions Club Drive, Land Lot 538, District 2, Section 2. It is a minor plat to subdivide the parcel into 4 large tracts. Lots range from 3.036 acres to 3.110 acres, with a total of 12.244 acres and a density of 0.32 lots per acre. Agenda item number 22-058. G, approval of a construction services agreement between the City of Milton and CIB International, Inc., doing business as Can-Am Signs and Imaging, for the repairs of 2 wayfinding signs in the Crabapple area. Agenda item number 22-059. H, approval of change order number 1 between the City of Milton and Pencor LLC to amend the agreement by adding additional services for the renovations of former Milton Country Club. Agenda item number 22-060. I, approval of a services agreement order form government agency agreement with addendum number 1 for 9 security cameras and data sharing MOU with addendum number 1 for the pre-existing security camera, both between the City of Milton, Georgia and Flock Group, Inc. for the Milton Police Department to participate in the Flock data sharing program. Agenda item number 22-061. And our final consent item, J, approval of a professional services agreement with Practical Design Partners, LLC, for State Route 140, Arnold Mill Road, at Green Road intersection, additional alternative analysis. Agenda item number 22-062. Mayor?
Thank you. Any discussion? I'd like to open up for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Councilmember Morrig and a second from Councilmember Cookerly. If there's no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. So we'll move on to reports and presentations. Will the city clerk please sound the first item?
That item is proclamation recognizing Arbor Day 2022. Mayor Peyton Jamison.
Thank you. So it is my honor to read this proclamation in honor of Arbor Day of 2022. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, beautify our community, and are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas the city of Milton has been recognized as a Tree City USA community each year since 2009, and whereas the city of Milton and our citizens are committed to the stewardship of our natural resources, and now therefore we, the mayor and the city council of the city of Milton, hereby recognize and proclaim for the year 2022, February 18th, as Arbor Day, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands to make Milton an even greater place to live, work, and raise a family. And further, we urge all citizens to plant trees to promote the well-being of future generations, given under my hand and seal of the city of Milton, Georgia, on this 7th day of February 2022. And with that, we'll come down and give this proclamation. Is Ms. Jacobus here with the Master Gardeners? She is? Okay, great. And Sandra, and I'll come down and take a picture. Yeah, we'll go down there.
That's okay. That's fine. Just help the whole group.
Okay. He's going to say, yes. I don't know how that works.
Mayor, you'll be in the list too.
Where am I?
Right next to me. We're actually scoot over.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Unless you don't want to be around.
No, that's fine. I haven't seen you.
Ready? Hey, trees. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Will the city clerk please sound the next item?
The next item is presentation of the launch of Plant Milton. Ms. Sandra DeWitt.
Thank you, Susan. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, thank you for supporting the things like Arbor Day and Tree City USA. So this is our 13th year being recognized as a Tree City USA, and couldn't do that without the support of our mayor and council. So thank you very much. And in honor of Arbor Day, we thought this was a good time to introduce a new initiative to you. We are starting a new initiative called Plant Milton. And just to give you a little bit of a background, many of you were here when I first came to you and presented amendments to the tree canopy conservation ordinance in August of 2020. And as you know, the ordinance kind of focuses on tree removal requirements. And someone suggested from City Council, I think it was you, Carol Cookerly, that we should create something to encourage citizens of Milton to plant trees as well. So that got a lot of us thinking, and I have been working with communications, parks and recreation, and economic engagement to come up with an idea, Plant Milton. So you see here is our new logo. And then our mission statement is to engage, educate, and encourage Milton citizens, community groups, and businesses to plant trees, increasing the tree canopy and thereby enhancing the quality of life in the city of Milton. So we wanted to make it a little bit of an outreach effort where we can not just ask people to plant trees, but give them the resources and information they need to know about how to plant a tree, where to plant a tree, what to plant. So here are some initiatives that we've already started. We have launched a Plant Milton website, and the web address is here. I encourage everyone to go to it. We have started putting information on there already, and we'll continue to add more information. A social media campaign was started with communications, introducing Ask the Arborist. This is a series that we started to give citizens a chance to ask me their general tree questions, and I will do my best to answer as many as I can. We also, in honor of Arbor Day, we're gonna do a seedling giveaway. So at this Arbor Day, which is February 18th, 10 o'clock, Providence Park, we are gonna be giving away 200 northern red oak seedlings. These are great shade trees and do well in the area. So we're hoping that everybody will come and get a seedling and everybody will take it home and plant it immediately. Also, to kind of encourage people to plant trees, we try to come up with some incentive ideas. And thanks to the help of Courtney, we have this lovely water bottle, and everybody got one tonight, and it has our Plant Milton logo on it. And the idea is that when somebody plants a tree in Milton, a citizen, they can send us photographic evidence or come down to City Hall and show me a picture of them and their new tree in their yard, and they will get one of these water bottles. So we also hope to grow this in the future. This is just the beginning. We are working already to kind of partner with community groups, such as the North Fulton Master Gardeners, for educational outreach. We think it'll be a great partnership where we can reach even more people. If everybody works together, we reach their people, they reach our people, and it's just a chain reaction. So in the future, maybe we can even work with other community groups such as schools, Boy Scouts, any kind of community groups, anybody who's interested basically in planting trees. We've even had some citizens come out tonight that are interested in wanting to get involved in planting trees around Milton. In the future, we hope we can also do more seedling giveaways. Arbor Day is not the only time you can plant trees. We can plant pretty much any time of the year. The best time is November through February. So maybe we can start looking at doing other seedling giveaways. We have other events like Crabapple Fest and Earth Day and other things, and bring one to the chipper. If you're going to recycle your Christmas tree, you might as well plant another tree, right? We also hope to expand Ask the Arborist. Communications has been working with getting the word out as much as possible, and we're hoping that maybe even the local newspaper or some other groups will pick it up and kind of recite it. So just to give you an example, here is some screenshots of our website. So we have information on there about Plant Milton and our mission, and we also talk about the water bottles and coming out to get a seedling at Arbor Day. We have our Ask the Arborist information on there. And then we also include some information like why do we plant trees? What are good trees to plant in Milton? And we hope to continue to grow this, like I said. Here's some of our social media posts that we have put out on Facebook already announcing the Ask the Arborist series. And we've already put out one of the answers to a question we've already received. So at this time, if you have any comments or feedback you'd like to give me, welcome. All positive, right?
Thanks. Councilmember Cook Early?
Sandra and Greg and others, can I just thank you very much? I did not know that this idea had taken flight, and I am very appreciative. So thank you to all of staff that got busy with this. It's really well done, so thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, there are no first presentation items, so we'll move on to the public hearing. Will the city clerk please sound the items?
Thank you, Mayor. Item A is consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to AKP Butchers LLC, doing business as New York Butcher and Wine Shop, 12635 Crabapple Road, Suite 120, Milton, Georgia, 30004. Agenda item number 22-063. Ms. Bernadette Harville.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening, we have an alcohol beverage license application for the New York Butcher and Wine Shop. They have been working with staff since July 2021 to ensure compliance with the city's alcohol licensing regulations. You may recall that this is one of the business models that prompted the initial ordinance revisions related to our current craft beer and wine market license. They are located at 12635 Crabapple Road. We have the image here of their signage up front in compliance with the new advertising requirements. They are applying for off-premises retail package of wine and beer, including Sunday sales for off-premise package, and then also that on-premise craft beer and wine market piece for beer and wine on site. They are located right here across the street on Crabapple Road, and they are in compliance, and we will vote later this evening.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to call Adam Danella to the podium.
I'm Adam Danella. I live at 3119 Haybridge Lane right over here in Brayburn. I just wanted to make a couple quick points on this. I'm not against the concept of a butcher shop or even one that's going to sell wine and beer, craft beer out of it. What I am concerned about is the on-premise license piece of it. Couple reasons. One, part of the code here for the types of licensing and permitting you can get, the craft beer and wine market license is an add-on supplement to both a package license and an on-premise license. So you do have to have both in order to give this license. Now, what it says too, under craft beer and wine market license, the primary purpose of the establishment must be the package sale of craft beers or wine for consumption off premises. The primary purpose here, I think, is a butcher shop. Maybe I'm wrong. The other part of this is that in Part J, that's where it says it's a supplement to the off-premise sales license as well as the on-premise sales license that would be required. So when you look back at 470, the license and permitting part, the COP license for beer and wine says to obtain this license, you'd have to qualify as an eating establishment or derive a minimum of 30% of its total annual gross food and beverage sales from prepared meals or food to obtain a limited food service license, or also obtain a craft and beer wine market license. So my assumption is because they're asking for the COP license, they have to only obtain the market license to get it. But I don't necessarily think you can under Part C, where it says the primary purpose has to be package sale. The second part of this is that as an add-on, it just says in the chart, off-premise package sales and either on-premise consumption standard or on-premise consumption limited. So you do have to have one or both to get that one. The problem I see with it is that there are no restrictions to that. It's not a, if this is right, if the standard license is given, there isn't necessarily any restriction as to what they can serve, when they can serve. It's not food, it's just a bar if you give this license. And there's no restriction to 30% or 50%, the revenue, sales, eating establishment, limited food service restaurants, or anything like that. That's the part I would be against, is having just a neighborhood bar that serves meat on the side, that you take home. And then with the amount of people that this is growing to be, walkability, things like that. I mean, I have concerns with the nature of people coming in, having drinks from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., 6 days a week, and, being in this area, in this community, and it not really fitting within the purpose of, the rationale and reasons that these alcohol licensors are in place. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
No, Mayor.
Okay, so I will close the public hearing and open up for council discussion. I know Bernadette probably wants to answer some of those questions.
I'll be happy to.
Okay.
I do want to first state the current Municode ordinance that's available is not the most up to date. Greg has helped us with having a separate link while Tammy works with Municode to get that updated. The version that Mr. Danella has is prior to the amendments you guys had made last, I believe, October. This was so he is correct that they would not have been able to be in the city prior to those amendments. We did change it to make it part of only the add-on for an off-premise only, because it was almost double charging them by having the on-premise component and the off-premise component in addition to the craft beer and wine component. So now it is an off-premise license with the add-on of a on-premise craft beer and wine market, and it does have restrictions that we put in place to restrict the interior floor space. Can only be 60% of it has to be devoted to the retail sales for off-premise consumption or food and beverage preparation. So we can't have more square footage dedicated to the drinking on site. If you remember that piece, you don't walk in and see a bar. Additionally, 60% of the sales have to be derived from the sales for off-premise or the prepared food and meals or groceries that they're going to sell. So there is that component to restrict the consumption on site. This component that they have turned in, they are saying about 10% of their sales will come from consumption on premise. They would be allowed up to 40%, but they're saying 10%. So we did address some of those concerns. I know there still may be further concerns, but we did address some of them in the last amendments you all approved.
Thank you. Councilmember Cookerly?
And Bernadette, how would that be tracked? Whether it's 10% or 40%, what tracking is there?
So currently we have two options. Because they're not doing distilled spirits, we wouldn't have that monthly tracking that we currently ask for, but we do annually. They have to turn in their paperwork, and we can also audit at any time.
Okay, as long as we're fair across the spectrum. It's a little hard to follow the bouncing ball, but fairness and the way that we treat everybody is important. And do you feel like this is consistent in that way?
Absolutely. We did talk about the possibility of asking everyone to turn in monthly records, and we can talk about that further. We had not implemented that to date. So everyone who does not sell distilled spirits for consumption on site currently does not have to turn in those monthly reports, but they do all have to turn in the annual reports.
Councilmember Moore?
Yeah, just a question. I mean, we're going down a new path with the changes we've made to the alcohol licenses, what we have and opportunities. Have we actually done any audits, or has it all been just self-reporting since we've been a city? How do we handle that? Back to Carol's question. Are we actually inspecting? Are we going through that? Because that would be a concern if we're not really looking closely at what's going on.
In my knowledge, we have only had the self-reporting, and then we check their numbers to make sure they're in compliance with what they're turning in. We have not gone in and asked for their records to be opened up and seen their books to date.
Okay.
Another compliance tool would be outside of finance would be with the PD, who goes in time to time to check on things, but that's from the finance side.
So essentially, right now, we're just doing annual, turn in when they request a license, they do self-reporting? Is that?
Correct. We have an affidavit that they sign that we put into place the year before last that says their square footage, their alcohol sales, and compared to other sales and those kinds of reporting.
Okay.
Councilmember Moore?
Bernadette, is the applicant here this evening?
I'm not aware of the applicant being here. Going to go with no.
Okay, so I'll ask you the question anyway. So have you seen the interior concept to understand their actual application of the square footage? And do they intend to have, so it's a butcher shop. So my takeaway from a standard butcher shop is you've got raw meat for sale across the board. Are they intending to do prepared food as a portion of their sales? And if so, how are they going to present that in the actual deliverable of the unit, the business?
So I spent a long time discussing with Ms. Persichetti their concept, and they have another establishment in South Carolina, how that one worked, and what their plans were leading up to those other revisions. Her business, along with 2 other businesses at the time, had similar concepts that were not going to be authorized, and then we talked about what they were intending to do. Their intent, as they presented it to me back in last summer when we spoke, was to have raw meats for sale in a grocery fashion, as well as they can have a kitchenette or a kitchen in there that they can prepare it for you and can eat there. So they do have that piece of the component where you can have prepared meals on site, or you can bring it home. They would like you to be able to have a drink in their establishment, as well as bring home a bottle of that wine or beer.
So with the concepts that they've shown you, do you expect it to be considered more of a package store or a restaurant or a butcher shop?
So what they're saying here is that 80% of their sales will be derived from that off-premise consumption and prepared food and meals. So they're saying 80% will be devoted to the butcher shop's part as well as the off-premise, and then 10% coming from the on-site consumption, and then they have 10% from other sales, which would not qualify, I guess, as any of those items.
Okay. So this is the first time we're having a chance to, under our new approach, or we're having a chance to vet some of this a little bit further. And I would, as we're learning about what the process is going to look like, I think we should consider having the applicant here, especially when we're looking at some of these new concepts. This is one of those things where you're asking us to visualize it. You may have had the benefit of more firsthand knowledge and working closely with the applicant, but as we're hearing some of this for the first time, I have heard you loud and clear that it's compliant with our parameters, so I appreciate that. But from a conceptual standpoint, especially as we're trying to take those first steps and careful steps to be concerned about what the look and feel of crab apple in particular is going to look like at the end of the day, it might serve us well to have concept drawings and to have the applicant here to answer some of those questions.
I can certainly pass that along.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Jacobus?
Do you know, are they going to have an actual bar in there? And are they going to have seating? How much seating is inside the facility?
I'm trying to go back to the original drawing that we worked on when we were calculating the square footage, and the way I remember it in my mind was and I don't know if anyone has access to the most current concept, was as if you walked in and it was mostly retail, and in the back corner was a kitchen, and then to this side you had some seating. I don't recall seeing a bar per se. It was more tables and chairs seating, maybe a bistro style kind of pull up to, but not where they're serving you necessarily from a bar. I don't remember that in the concept, but I can't guarantee that that's not what will be in the most recent edition.
Okay.
All right. If no further discussion, we will vote and discuss this more under new business. So if the city clerk will please say on the next item.
Item B is consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to Audette Hospitality Group, Inc., doing business as Trey Lunas at 12635 Crabapple Road, Suite 320, Milton, Georgia 30004. Agenda item number 22-064. Ms. Bernadette Harville.
Trace Lunas will be opening in the suite that was previously occupied by Tierra Imar and Cans, also at 12635 Crabapple Road, right here in downtown Milton. They do qualify as an eating establishment and are applying to have consumption on premises of wine, beer, and distilled spirits, including Sunday sales, as well as resident catering privileges. They are in compliance, and again, we'll be voting later this evening.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this?
No, there is not.
Okay, so I will close the public hearing. Any discussion or questions for Bernadette on this? Okay, thank you. We'll vote on this under new business. Will the city clerk please say on the next item?
Item C, consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to 12690 Crabapple LLC, doing business as Welcome Foods Crabapple, 12690 Crabapple Road, Milton, Georgia 30004. Agenda item number 22-065. Ms. Bernadette Harville.
The last public hearing for alcohol licensing we have this evening is for Welcome Foods Crabapple, which is new ownership at the Shell location on the corner of Crabapple Road and 372. They are applying for off-premise package of retail wine and beer sales, including Sunday sales. This business is in compliance, and again, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any public comment on this?
No.
Okay, so I will close the public hearing. Any council discussion? Councilmember Moore?
Just a quick question for Bernadette. This is the gas station that under prior ownership had a similar license, correct? There's nothing new about this. It's just a new ownership.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. So moving on to our zoning agenda, will the city clerk first read the zoning rules and then sound the first item?
When the mayor and city council consider a zoning agenda, these items include rezoning petitions, modifications of zoning, use permits, and associated concurrent variances, in addition to ordinances, resolutions, and text amendments. I would like to acquaint you with some of the rules and procedures for this meeting, which includes a zoning agenda. The applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The opposition will also be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present its position. If time remains, the opposition will be allowed to rebut. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks, provided time remains with the allotted time. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the comment cards were received by the city clerk prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable, before beginning their presentation. The Planning Commission has heard the rezoning agenda items, and their recommendations have been forwarded to the mayor and city council for consideration and disposition. The applicant shall not submit material to the council during this meeting unless requested to do so. All materials that you wish to be reviewed by the council in consideration of your application should have already been submitted to the Community Development Department and is included in the normal distribution of packages to the council. When an opponent of a rezoning action has made, within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local government official of the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and you have not filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak for your point of view. Mayor, zoning agenda items A, B, C, and D will be grouped into one presentation. Therefore, I will read them off now. Staff will then give their presentation, then we will allow public comment and the vote on each item individually. Item A is consideration of RZ 21-15 to create a new use permit, Assembly Hall Indoor Auditorium, Section 64-1846, Agenda Item Number 22-037. B, consideration of RZ 21-16, Article 19, Crabapple Form-Based Code, Article 6.1, Definitions to define Assembly Hall, Indoor Auditorium, Agenda Item Number 22-038. C, consideration of RZ 21-17, Article 20, Deerfield Form-Based Code, Article 5, Table 10, Specific Function and Use, Agenda Item Number 22-039. D, consideration of RZ 21-18, Article 20, Deerfield Form-Based Code, Article 6.1, to define Assembly Hall Indoor Auditorium, Agenda Item Number 22-040. Ms. Robin McDonald.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Just wanted to go over this set of text amendments that has also been before you at a work session, so hopefully it won't be any surprises. So basically, the purpose of these items are to provide a new use permit, a new definition, and clarify where they are allowed within the Crabapple and Deerfield form-based codes for this Assembly Hall Indoor Auditorium. The objective of these text amendments are to codify the use of the Assembly Hall Indoor Auditorium within the city. Some background, these text amendments went before the Community Zoning Information Meeting, and there were no comments on the subject on November 30th. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of all of these text amendments at their December 15th, 2021 meeting, with some minor amendments that did not materially change the proposed text amendments, and they are already reflected in what you have before you. Also, just want to mention these items have been reviewed by the city attorney as well and have included any recommended changes by the city attorney. At the January 10th meeting, City Council work session, I presented these proposed use permits and associated amendments. And at that meeting, you all were supportive of the amendments as presented by staff. Since that meeting, staff has received a comment from a property owner within the city requesting that the time of operation begin at 7 a.m. instead of the 9 a.m. within the use permit standards. And I believe you all have received that request via email. Historically, there has been one assembly hall located in the city on North Main Street, which is Highway 9, in the Deerfield form-based code area. It ceased operating during 2020. It was allowed by right within the T5 transect zone. Within the Crabapple form-based code, a use permit is required within the T5 and T4 open transect zones. Then I'll show a map in a second. And in 2012, when the form-based code was adopted, the necessary use permit was not created or adopted. So just want to show you the areas that are considered T4 and T5. They're outlined in a heavy line, and then within each area, the medium purple is T4 open, the dark purple is T5. Much of these areas have already been developed either with residential or with commercial. So I just want to show you that. So this is a snippet from the code table, and you can see here Assembly Hall Indoor Auditorium is required under T4 open and T5 to have a use permit. And that's the main purpose that we brought these back before you, is that there was not a use permit that was created back in 2012. So interestingly enough, I did a search on Municode, which is kind of like the codified library of different jurisdictions. And there's many jurisdictions in the United States that use form-based code. But what was interesting was none of them had a definition for this term. So we are not the only jurisdiction that does it this way, but we probably will be the first to define it exactly. So just wanted to give you a little bit of background on that. And that leads us into the definition. So the definition is both for Crabapple and Deerfield. And this is a proposed definition. A building or portion of a building for public rental for the purpose of private party events, whether family, group, or corporate in nature, where access by the general public is restricted, and with or without the sale, serving, or consumption of food and or alcoholic beverages, an assembly hall indoor auditorium shall not include a restaurant. So that is what we're proposing for the definition. Now we're going to talk about the use permit, which is RZ 2115. So I like to make this statement that this is the city cousin to the rural event facility that you all are familiar with, that's within AG1. This use permit will require it to go through the public hearing process, which includes the CZIM meeting, a design review board meeting, a planning commission, and city council. That is when somebody comes and makes that request for that use. And these are the proposed development standards. Days and hours of operation shall be the following: Sunday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Friday and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. with a little bit later ending time. Deliveries shall be limited to Sunday through Saturday, 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. This is analogous to the restrictions of times and days for trash pickup. So, no amplified sound permitted unless it is within a fully enclosed structure. The maximum number of attendees at events held will be evaluated by the mayor and city council on a case-by-case basis for each site to protect the public's health, safety, and welfare. Any such determination shall not supersede any occupancy restriction contained in any other ordinance, code, statute, rule, or regulation, or other law. And lastly, the owner or operator must hold all other appropriate licenses and permits. So that is the proposed use permit standards. And just to remind you that obviously it would be permitted in crabapple, T4 open, and T5. And then we're going to talk about now the Deerfield area. So RZ 2117 deals with Deerfield, which was adopted in 2014. And this use was permitted originally by right. There was no administrative or public hearing required. It is staff's opinion that within the Deerfield form-based code, it should also be required to obtain a use permit, the public hearing process. So this would be equal to what crabapple would requires currently. So therefore, this table, the snippet of the table shows a change of the requirement from right to being allowed by right to requiring a use permit. Also, if you can see, here's the highlighted area, and then staff is also proposing to eliminate that use altogether in the T4 open, but allowing it by use permit in T5 and T6. So this is the map, and then again, the areas that are the medium and dark, T5 and T6, are the areas that are permitted, that would be permitted by use permit. And then, let's see. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
For any questions, I guess before I open up for questions, just so council's aware, we're going to have questions and then we're going to have public comment on each item on an individual basis. So we're going to vote on each item. So we'll have public comment after questions. So do you have a question, Councilman Moore?
Yeah, Robin, could you explain it? When I've read the definition, it said it's for private parties. What is a private party? The one person who's applying for, I guess, this use permit was talking about using it for Bible studies, for business meetings, for that type of thing. How do we define what that really means? And then is there a size and underneath that, the use of that space that qualifies it as an auditorium or indoor?
So, I mean, I think of it as, like I stated, it's kind of like the city cousin of the agricultural event facility, in the sense of, I think the intent of this is to have, whether it's a party, whether it's a reception or a Sweet 16, any of those things. But you have to understand that an applicant will be coming to you on a case-by-case basis, and they will be writing out what we call a letter of intent. And they're going to outline what their business plan is. This is what we intend to do with the space. These are our requested hours of operation within the parameters that are that would be permitted within the use permit. So I can't really answer that question exactly because every case will be different.
So in the case, if someone has, let's say it's in an office building where they've got other businesses and office space, like down in Crabapple, and this is rental to businesses or whatever, not necessarily parties, does that fall still under the auditorium under this definition?
Well, I think my opinion would be that if they were just having a meeting within an office space, I wouldn't think they would need it. But if their use, their perceived or future use of it would include Bible studies and meetings, civic meetings, but then they're also going to have it available for parties, private parties, then we need to have this use permit. So it just depends. Again, you go back to the case-by-case basis of what that applicant is intending to do for that space.
And we could designate then the hours, because I guess I'm thinking if someone's using it for business, would this also apply if someone was doing like temporary office space, like where people can come in and they can rent the space for an hour or 2 hours because they want to use it for their business or for a business meeting?
I mean, I would see that more as an office space, not as a assembly hall indoor auditorium. If somebody had a suite of offices, and we don't really track that, but let's say they decided to sublease their offices to people, as long as they're just operating as an office, then we don't have any opposition to it. They wouldn't need this use permit. It's just when you bring in activities that aren't typically consistent with an office use in your example.
So in this case, the one that we're going to hear probably coming up pretty soon, they will use it for a number of different things, but they could then request specific hours, because if you have a business meeting and it's going to start at 8 a.m., they may want to have set up to bring in like food if they're bringing in light pastries or whatever at 7:30 or at 7. So I'm just thinking that, would that be something they would request? So the standard hours are 9 to.
So they would
Tuesdays.
request it, but it would, if this use permit is approved as stated with these hours of operation, if someone, an individual request says, I want to have 7:30 operation, they would have to ask for a concurrent variance along with the use permit. So it's not just asking for a set of conditions, but we have to evaluate each concurrent variance for that situation. Versus if you did decide to amend this text amendment, this use permit to be more broader, then it would be the opposite. They would say, I won't start until 7:30, and they condition themselves from 7:30 to 9 p.m. or whatever they do. So that would not require a variance because it's within the boundaries of whatever is approved as the use permit, if you so decide to make it earlier. But we can condition, staff can condition, instead of opening at 7, we could say they open at 8, and that's what they have to do.
Okay, so that could be a case by case.
Correct.
When they bring the individual use permit forward.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Councilman Johnson?
Are there parking requirements attached to this?
So the parking would just be satisfied through what is in the area. But that is a great point that we don't have specific requirements. So that's a good point. So in the other event, rural event facility, we require 2.5 parking spaces. One space per 2.5 people.
I guess that's something that can be brought up.
We can, if you all want to add that as a development standard, that's definitely fine.
Or when they apply, we can, can we do that when they apply on a case-by-case basis also, or?
That's true. We could
Okay.
do it by a case by case, because obviously if you already have a area that already has parking provided, then there wouldn't be any reason to have to add it because
Okay.
they already have parking within the area. But it would be, we could either put it on the front end, or we could also do it case by case.
Okay. Councilman Moore?
Yeah, a number of questions come to mind, Robin, when you think about The gentleman who wrote to us was talking about a specific location in Crabapple, and it's on the second floor of I think it's the Marketplace building. So that's an existing building. So in that particular instance, you can think about the scenario of likely uses for it, and there may be some uses in that scenario, in that particular location that may be inappropriate because of number of people for the size of the event or the hours of operation. I could think of an issue too. For example, would an exercise class fall under, could they host exercise classes in an environment like this on that second floor?
Alvin, could you go back to the definition slide so we can use that?
Yeah. Because when I think about the application process, all of the potential, if I'm not mistaken, all of the potential scenarios for the use permit would come at the point of application, correct? It's not like they come in and they sign up for three things and it's Bible study, work coaching, and cotillion. But they also then want to host a wedding reception, or they want to host a Zumba class that's may have louder music, and you've got a business above it that's a law office. They're not applying at the time. When they're making their application, they're only applying at one time for the use permit to cover all their potential uses, correct?
Right, if you name three different uses, so
Right.
then if they go off, and I think staff would encourage them to list as many of the possible uses that they would utilize that space for as possible, so we can make sure that staff can help the planning commission and ultimately the city council to ameliorate any issues like that you suggested.
Here's my concern, and thank you for clarifying it that way, because so it's like, whose responsibility is the determination of what business can go there? If I'm the owner of the building and I'm leasing to this business entity as a tenant within my building, and they intend to apply for that use permit, and let's say they give you a laundry list of things, and some of them are probably reasonably appropriate for a business application during the course of a standard business day, when you've got and I'll use a law office as the example above it, requires, time for, it needs quiet. That could potentially be interrupted by some of the potential uses. So is it the city's responsibility to measure what those uses are when they're making the application? Or is it incumbent upon the building owner who's got a leasing agent who is measuring those things to make sure that their tenants above and below are not going to be upset by a new business that's there? It's unclear to me as to where that probably should best fall. Should it fall on the city when they make their application that we measure those things? Or should we be more open to it and let be the burden of the property owner who's got a leasing agent who's got that responsibility? Ken, do you have a thought
I
on
would
that?
take, Councilman Moore, I would typically take the position that is the responsibility of the private parties involved, that we don't, you've asked for something, now we're going to assess whether that was a wise ask or not.
Mm-hmm.
Setting yourself up for is to undermine the integrity of the rest of your lease space
Right.
because of the noise you're going to cause here. Yeah, I think that's a private issue.
Okay.
Any other, Councilman Jacobus?
If we change the hours from 9 a.m. to 7 a.m., we would eliminate a step for somebody that wanted to do things like from 7 to 9 timeframe. If we leave it as is, they've got to go through an extra step in order to do that. If we move it to 7, they still have to come for approval on the types of things they're going to do there. But we save them a step of dealing with the city if we keep it.
So the variance is called a concurrent variance. So it's not like it's an extra step. It's done concurrently with the
Right.
use permit. So there's not extra time. It's just an extra consideration to look at in the application. And the flip side of that is that when they submit their letter of intent, giving their intention of what they're doing, I'm going to ask them, and they when I do a pre-application meeting, what will your hours of operation be? And they may say 7:30 or 8 to 9 PM. So then eventually, when it comes before you, that would be one of the conditions of the use permit, would be 7:30, let's say, if that's what they requested. So it just depends on which way you all want to handle it. I mean, typically when we do a concurrent variance, it has the same requirements of the 4 standards to consider when you consider a variance, which are kind of difficult to meet. So I think it's looking at that in that view as well.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the issue when we did the times, we're more concerned about the nighttime as far as, because the one that we did have was maybe considered a bar at night. And I think when y'all were doing the times, you were concerned more of the cutoff. Weren't even thinking about Bible studies or stuff in the morning. And I don't have a problem with the set 7 a.m., knowing that they're going to be coming before us on a case-by-case basis, and we can limit the hours however we want on each case. So, but is that correct when I was thinking on the times?
Correct. The way that you explained it, that's exactly the same thing, that you would have that opportunity to condition each case when it comes before you.
That's from Ward.
Robin, could we, as part of this, when they do the application, can we get a layout, see the layout of the space? Because when I think of auditorium or assembly hall, I'm thinking of just a blanket place. And I actually went over and I looked at the one that's going to come before us with the property owner and walked through it. And it's not anything like I would consider assembly hall. It's finished nicely. They're going to have furniture, and it's more of a, it'll be more of like an office space or a meeting place, not so much an assembly hall. But it would still fall underneath this application because they are going to be renting it. Could be homeowners association meetings, someone could rent it. It could be Bible study. It could be a number of different things.
Correct.
I think it would help this body if we actually could see when they come forward with the application, what is the space we're approving versus just the use permit, but show us what it is so we get an idea of what we're approving.
Definitely. So it's really no different. I know everybody's looking at this particular scenario, and it is within a buildings. And so I can ask the applicant to show a floor plan and maybe have pictures. So it's no different than if you had a raw piece of land and somebody was asking for this same kind of use to build a building. We would provide you a site plan, we would provide you a building layout and maybe elevation. So I think, yes, definitely that's totally doable.
I think that would be good because in this case, it's contained within a structure already. It's a component of that total retail or business space.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Moore.
Robin, can you help me again understand the alcohol and food component of it? If I understand correctly,
Where's Bernadette? No, doing my best Steve impersonation.
So the entity, for the entity that is applying for the permit, if there's going to be alcohol or food served, it's because they don't have a kitchen, they don't have an alcohol license. They would have to secure both of those through third party, probably through a caterer, authorized caterer. And if so, then who's actually holding the contract with the caterer? The permit recipient or the one-time event proprietor, but the applicant?
So we actually have an option here. Assembly Hall is eligible to apply for their own alcohol license. So the one I think of, the rural event facility, is Little River Farms, holds their own. They could choose to use caterers in that space instead of having their own as well, if they don't want to have that specific liability. It's my understanding that the person renting the space would need to work with the owners of the space to ensure liability and everything within that on their side. But we would allow any of our resident caterers or those qualified as non-resident caterers to serve there.
And that's how the rural event facility is handled as well.
They kind of do
Correct.
both, I think.
Yeah. Or you let's say you had another applicant that wanted to have like a real full-service event facility in T4 open in Crabapple, they may choose to go ahead and get their own license, correct?
Okay, just to be clear, so I want to host a wedding reception. And we'll use the marketplace example again, second floor, businesses above and below me. My event's going to be in the evening. There's no food or alcohol permit today for that second floor unless the applicant comes in and applies for that as a part of their permitting process. If they apply for that, like you just described, like a Little River Farms, okay, I get that. What I don't understand still is if they don't have that, and I'm the father of the bride, I want to host that event, am I striking a relationship for the approved alcohol and food, or is the permit holder?
So either party could work with the caterer. It's the caterer's responsibility to get their permit from the finance department issued by the city manager for each event that they cater. So ultimately, the responsibility for, on the alcohol side, would be with that caterer to report the time, date, location of the event to get their permit. Now, as far as if that was the person renting the space coordinating with that caterer or the owner, I believe that would be up to the proprietor of that space to say either you need to get your own caterer that's authorized or we will supply one for you. But we would have a list for them if they want to contact us, but that caterer is ultimately responsible for us to report everything.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I'm asking that line of questions is I'm thinking about enforcement. If there were something that were to get out of hand, and I'm the one who's hosting the party, I may not necessarily be held accountable if it got out of hand, if there was something inappropriate with the alcohol component of it. So in that case, in the two scenarios you provided, you'd hold the approved caterer accountable if there were some kind of violation, or in the other scenario, you would hold the permit holder.
The license holder.
License
Yes, sir.
holder account. Okay. There are paths to accountability.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Robin before we call each agenda item and open public comment?
Mayor, can I ask a
Yeah.
question?
Sure.
Slide back up at the definition.
That is the definition right there. Oh, he took it off.
Right. The only thing, and again, my office may have reviewed, probably did, but just reading. The private party events, I'm afraid that might confuse us later. Damage would we do? Or public rental for the purpose of private events. I'm concerned that not sure whether that's a noun or an adjective, a party. I think we probably can capture it just by private events. So it's a commercial transaction for public rental. So that it's basically space that's held out for anybody can rent it. But once you rent it, it's for a private event, which means not for a public.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I just wonder if maybe taking the part, because that's confusing. I'm sitting here reading it thinking, does this involve, noisemakers and pointed hats or right? Or is it just, it's supposed to be. Right.
Yeah, Tuesday night's rave is at the second floor.
Right.
And it's a one.
And you'll be there.
Well,
Okay.
with my party hat and my, yeah.
No, I think that's a good amendment that we can make in the motion. Okay.
I'm sorry, you know what? In the actual text, we deleted party. So this is incorrect. So we already had proposed to delete that party.
So would we need to make an amendment or is it already in there?
Right, so I'm reading, this isn't the official, but if you look at your packet, if you look at page 208, it'll show the strikeout
Okay.
of party. Yeah.
Okay. I guess if the city clerk will please call the first item and then we'll comment.
Item A is consideration of RZ 21-15 to create a new use permit, Assembly Hall Indoor Auditorium, Section 64-1846, Agenda Item Number 22-037.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this?
Not on this item, no.
Okay. So there's no public comment. I'd like to open it for a motion.
Wait, where are we? Sorry.
Agenda item number 22-037.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve agenda item number 22-037.
is, before we open it for a vote, is council okay with the times?
I'd like to see us change it from 9 AM to 7 AM. Just
Do
gives it
you want it for
flexibility.
You mean
both.
7 AM to,
From 9 AM to 7 AM.
oh, gotcha.
So 7 AM now in the text instead of 9 AM.
Right.
For
Okay.
all
Is that where-
days.
Is that where that change would take place, is in A?
Right. Well, both 1 and little I and little double I.
Wouldn't that preclude like pre-work gatherings and why?
Well, that's the idea, is you
It will
move it
allow-
from being able to do it at 9, you could do it as early as 7.
Correct.
Right.
Oh, okay,
So
that's
that
what you
would
wanted
add
to go
it,
to seven.
yes.
I want to
Okay,
go
was
to
confused
seven.
when you
Expanding
said
the
that.
hours.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
To me, that makes more sense.
That's where it was, wasn't it?
No,
No,
it was
it was
at
at
9.
9
Oh, was
AM.
it 9?
So we have a motion and we have a second, so if we're not
I'll
going to
withdraw
vote.
my second.
Withdraw your second?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, so I'll open up for a new motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve agenda item number 22-065 with the amendment of the hours to begin instead of 9 AM to begin at 7 AM. Closing hours to remain the same.
I think the agenda item is 22-037.
Correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had my finger on it and read the wrong one. So same motion.
Third time.
Agenda item 22-037 to amend the hours to 7 AM opening, same closing as represented in the
Second.
item.
Okay, any council discussion on the motion? Okay, we have a motion to approve agenda item number 22-037 with the recommended changes from Councilmember Moore. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Will the city clerk please say on the next item?
Item B, consideration of RZ 21-16, Article 19, Crabapple Form-Based Code, Article 6.1, definitions to define assembly hall indoor auditorium, agenda item number 22-038.
Is there any public comment?
No, not on this item, thank you.
Okay, so we will move on to a motion.
I make a motion that we approve agenda item number 22-038 as read.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion from Councilmember Jacobus and a second from Councilmember Verhoff to approve agenda item number 22-038. Any question, Councilmember
I
Moore?
just want to make sure that what we've reviewed on the slide, you said that the text that we've got does not have the
Deleted
word party. I
Correct.
just wanna
So
make
if
sure
you
that that's
approve
what-
it as presented
In our packet.
in the
So what we
official
saw
text.
is not what we're approving. We're approving.
And I
what's in the
apologize
package.
for that oversight. It's,
No, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Will the city clerk please say on the next item?
Item C, consideration of RZ 21-17, Article 20, Deerfield Form-Based Code, Article 5, Table 10, specific function and use, agenda item number 22-039.
Okay, is there any public comment?
No, not on this item, thank you.
Okay, so we will move on to a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve agenda item number 22-039.
A second?
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Cookerly and a second from Councilmember Jacobus to approve agenda item number 22-039. There's no council discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, will the city clerk please say on the next item?
Item D, consideration of RZ 21-18, Article 20, Deerfield Form-Based Code, Article 6.1, to define assembly hall indoor auditorium, agenda item number 22-040.
Okay, is there any public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll open it for a motion and timing on that too also.
Question before we make a motion.
Okay,
this is the definition.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 22-040 with the stated clarification that what was presented with the word "the party" has been eliminated.
Second.
And do we need to do hours of operation as well in this one for for Deerfield being the same as?
It's exact and same definition, but we had to, you have it for both locations because they're in two different parts of the
okay,
text.
so we're good on that.
Great.
Okay. Okay, so I have a motion from Councilmember Morg and a second from Councilmember Cookerly to approve agenda item 22-040 with Councilmember Morg's suggestions. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's unanimous. Will the city clerk please say on the next item?
Mayor, similarly, items F, G, and H will be grouped into one presentation. Therefore, I will read them off now. Staff will then give their presentation, and then we will allow public comment and the vote on each item individually. Item F is consideration of RZ 21-19, consideration of a text amendment to modify fence and wall specifications exemptions, Section 64-212. Agenda item number 22-041. G, consideration of RZ 21-20, consideration of a text amendment to Article 6, zoning text, district classifications and boundaries, to amend sections on fencing. Agenda item number 22-042. H, consideration of RZ 21-21, consideration of a text amendment to update the definition of fence equestrian with exhibits, Section 64-1. Agenda item number 22-043. Ms. Shubha Jangam.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Shubha Jangam, Senior Planner on behalf of Community Development, here to present the next three items. As part of our efforts to strengthen the zoning ordinance, we propose some changes to the fence regulations. Before I proceed, I want to note that our city doesn't require fencing properties. However, it requires permit if you want to put the fence, and the regulations here, the regulations that I am going to present have to be followed. Just so you know, the fence regulations are actually spread out in various sections of zoning ordinance, chapter 64 of zoning ordinance. And let me go to the next slide. So our overarching goal with this effort is to streamline the regulations, eliminate any inconsistencies in various districts like AG1, R2, R1, and etc. I'll go into details, but let me give you some key objectives. In RZ 21-19, we are specifically adding requirement for intercom system of a private gate to be minimum 15 feet from the right of way. In RZ 21-20, we are strengthening the regulations to prohibit opaque fences along the exterior streets. And RZ 20 is covering multiple districts, AG1 to R2. And finally, in RZ 21-21, we are actually expanding the definition of equestrian fence to clarify that the wire on the fence can be on either side of the fence. And we will be using the term equestrian fence, replacing 3 or 4 board fence in the text amendment here. Yeah. So, a little bit of background, we had our community zoning information meeting on November 20th. No comments were received on December 15th. We presented these text amendments to Planning Commission, and they unanimously recommended approval with minor changes. On January 10th, this should be 2022, I'm sorry. So on January 10th, we made a presentation to work session, and on January 19th, these items were on the agenda for first read. And then today we are having this final presentation for the consideration of approval of these amendments. So Going back to the details of RZ 2119, these are four things that are in that we are updating. We are requiring intercom, as I said before, to be minimum 15 feet from the right of way. And I will be going into details explaining this a little more. The next is prohibiting chain link fencing around the stormwater facilities. And this is for keeping consistent with other chapters or other sessions. Then we are correcting the fence height in this section just to match with the other zoning districts. And then finally, but most importantly, we are requiring equestrian fence on side or a side corner of a lot whenever it's adjacent to the exterior street. And only allowing opaque fences outside the 60-foot rural view shed as long as it's not visible any time of the year. I'm going to explain the first and the last one in detail. So currently in the zoning code, we do allow private gate at 20 feet from the right of way. But the code is silent about the keypads. And our objective here is to have a keypad at a safe distance from the right of way, so that when the car is waiting for a gate to open, it will not be hindering the oncoming traffic. So our recommendation is to have the intercom at 15 feet from the right of way. And I have some pictures from our community, and this is what it looks like when it's done right. There is plenty of space in front of the gate. So this is what we are actually proposing. And then in RZ 2119, this is again the general section of the fencing. It really only covers fences and walls, this section. Currently, the zoning ordinance allows opaque fences on the exterior street as long as the fence is not visible any time of the year. And last year we had 3 variances, and they were turned down, but the variances were to keep the opaque fence along the exterior street. And our objective here is to strengthen our regulations and prohibit the opaque fences on the exterior street. When we were having these variances, it was realized that that the non-visibility portion of this, regulation can be achieved by the landscaping. However, we do require a rural view shed, and the landscaping that can be proposed may not be consistent with our requirement of rural view shed. So it just does make sense to have the rural view shed in front of any opaque fence, so that, or in other words, the opaque fence beyond the 60-foot rural view shed, so that we will never see that opaque fence from the exterior street. So that's why we are adding this specific requirement that if somebody's rear yard or side yard is facing the exterior street, we can allow opaque fence as long as it's beyond the 60-foot rural view shed and it's not visible from the exterior street. So that's a major portion that we are included in in general section, as well as it's continuing in RZ 2120, which is covering AG1 and R1 and R2A. So giving you some visual aids, on the top right is a picture of a fence that's on Birmingham Highway, and you can see the opaque fence, and he tried to put the landscaping in front of it, and it just doesn't work. On the bottom right, there is opaque fence, but you can hardly see it because there is a beautiful rural view shed in front of it. So this is what we are proposing, and on the left we have a sample lot just to show you that on the red lines we will be requiring equestrian type of fence, and if it's beyond 60-foot rural view shed in the side or interior part of the subdivision or, interior part of the lot, we will be okay with opaque fence. So we are taking the same language that we discussed for the general section, and we are spreading it across in the sections of AG1 where it discusses fence in R1 and R2. So, and this is the way it's organized in the zoning ordinance. The fences are basically organized for three circumstances. If it's on the exterior street, if it's on the interior street, and what happens if it's on the side or side corner of a non-subdivided property. So we are keeping the same structure. I would love to make it, simplify it, but just working with the existing structure of this ordinance and making it consistent and trying to include that additional requirement of 60-foot rural view shed in front of opaque fence. Again, it's the same visual aid that I'm providing here. And finally, in RZ 2121, it's all about updating the definition of equestrian fence. Let me see. So, and we are doing this to clarify, as I said before, to clarify that the wired fence that we've always seen in Milton, the wired fences, and the wire fence, which side is the finished side. So we do have an existing definition, and we are adding this highlighted portion here, and now the definition reads like this. The fence equestrian means fence made from treated and or painted wooden boards, nailed or screwed to the posts, split rails with rounded ends that slide into holes in posts, composite board, and maximum 4" by 4" for posts. The height shall not exceed 5 feet from the average grade and may include a 3 or 4 board configuration with a parallel or cross design. Colors shall be black, dark brown, or white. Columns constructed of brick or masonry is also acceptable and shall not exceed 66 inches in height from the average grade. Fence may be enhanced with galvanized welded wire on either side of the fence as shown in Exhibit A and B, and these two pictures are in the text amendment, with painted welded wire. Both sides of the equestrian fence shall be considered a finished side. To give you more examples from our community here in Milton, we have taken these pictures, and you can see that some of the fences are having a wire on the outside and some of them are having inside. So we think that there is no significant difference when the wire is inside or outside. So either way, for our community, it's acceptable to have a wire as long as it's painted. So that's what we are requiring. So in summary, we are strengthening the regulations by streamlining and clarifying a few things and eliminating inconsistencies. If you have questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you. Councilmember Jacobus, then Councilmember Moore.
Yeah, on the, excuse me, on the wire fencing, we're pretty particular about the colors of the fence, but we're going to allow somebody to put white wire fence on a black. It didn't say that the wire had to match the color of the fence.
I would really prefer it to be black because black is negative color, and
I agree, but I think if
that
we've
was
got a-
not specified, and that's right now we are. But if you prefer, we can add it
I
in.
thought we struck white.
We talked about that.
We talked about that last.
Yeah, but it's,
I thought white was struck.
doesn't say
White
anything
is
there.
the classic. White is Virginia and Kentucky.
Yeah.
We're outliers.
But if we have
Think of
black
white
fence
wire.
and white.
If you have white fence, I
Wire.
don't mind white wire,
Right.
but black fence with white wire.
It looks fine. If you're Calumet, it looks fine.
So
You
if-
got $100 billion, it looks great. I mean, are we
Are you
really gonna
suggesting it's
regulate?
okay as long as it matches?
Yeah.
Or you can have
But
contrast?
some people don't want it painted at all. What about the people who just want to leave it pressure treated?
I think that's
We have a
fine.
number of those around town.
It's just galvanized.
Yeah, galvanized is fine, but white looks with
Well,
black.
I mean, I'm not, I have dark, but I think you have dark, right? Or is it yours
Almost
natural? You have
everything
some
is dark.
natural, right?
No, not on the road.
Okay. Well, I mean, to each his own, but wouldn't really turn my nose up at white. It's
I
a
think
big deal.
Councilmember Jacobus makes a good point. It needs to be consistent with the structural.
Well, you can't really paint one without doing the whole thing. It's not like you can really select.
No.
So it would match. I can't even imagine how anybody could paint separately. Because you paint once it's done.
Yeah.
So put whatever you would like.
Most
in
likely
there.
they'll end up painting the same color,
Yeah.
both of them, yeah.
Match.
Was it a big deal to say match then?
Councilmember Moore?
Yeah, just a
Just
couple
drill
of
down on it
questions.
all night.
When we talk about the equestrian fence, both sides of the equestrian fence are considered a finished side. I know when we go through Milton, we've got kind of a hodgepodge. We've got, in some cases, what I would consider the unfinished side on the outside towards the road with post facing out. And then others we have with a finished side, including a board over where the backside post is, and then the 4 board or 3 boards going through there. That I think is a much better look. I understand grandfathering existing structures, but these type of fences can be around businesses, like on the corner of Bethany Ben and Cogburn. I think we want to define what an equestrian fence finished side would look like. I don't think the post should be on the outside for new construction when we're actually doing that. I mean, are we not defining, are we saying that either they can build it however they want to build it?
So that's what we are trying to do because we have seen so many different types. Go ahead, Bob.
I just wanted to answer that, Councilman Moore. So the true equestrian fence, the posts are on the outside and the wire is facing the outside because when the horse or animal or any livestock comes up against that fence, it puts pressure on that fence. So the real true style, the real brand of Milton is the true equestrian style fence. That's the way the real fence is constructed. So anybody with horses, and everybody, there's several members here who have horses, they'll tell you that that's the real style and the real way to structurally build that fence in order for it to function correctly. So we like it to look like they're real, true horse fences in Milton. If you use it also for a pool enclosure or any other enclosure, the wire has to be on the outside so that kids cannot climb up over the fence. So if we turn around and say we no longer want the fence on the outside, we're going to have everybody's fence and pool enclosures and things, people saying, okay, I can't use an equestrian style fence any longer. I'm going to have to go to a different style fence. We're going to end up with fences that I think would destroy the brand of Milton. So to make it a true equestrian style fence, the wire really should be on the outside. The way we've always interpreted it, and all my predecessors and Fulton County Performing, they basically said, look, we'll leave it up to the applicant to decide which way you want to do it. Some people actually have done it without wire. Some people said, no, I want it to look really like a true equestrian style fence. If you drive up Freemanville Road, you'll see almost everybody has true equestrian style fences where the wire's on the outside. And it's kind of funny because every time I did an extensive amount of research on this and we walk around and we ask people, said, look, what do you think? And they go, Bob, honestly, I got to go outside and look at my fence because I've been living here for 15 years and I can't tell you if the wire's on the inside or the outside because it's all black and it disappears. And mostly it's on the outside, facing the street or a neighbor. So that's why we want to maintain that true equestrian style look in the city. So that's what we've been trying to do. But we really have just, the way the code is written now, we're just saying you could do either one. So if you decide you want it where the wire's on the inside, you can. If you decide you don't want wire, you don't have to, that kind of thing.
Okay, and I have no problem with the wire being on either side. Mine was more a question of how the fence is constructed. Now, I understand if it's a horse farm, you've got the finished side, what we consider the finished side could be on the inside because that's for safety of animals. What happens if I'm in a neighborhood and people are putting up equestrian style fences? Am I going to put the post towards my neighbor, just like we have issues with opaque fences? You can't put the post towards your neighbor. You have to put the finished side on the outside. So I understand when we're talking about for horse farms and standard
What
things.
happens generally in neighborhoods is somebody puts a fence up and then decides, hey, I want to put a pool up. And then all of a sudden, if they do it where the wire's on their inside, then they no longer can use that equestrian style fence as a pool barrier. So, if they want to get an animal or something, they can't. So the true look of an equestrian style fence is to have the wire on the outside. That's the real true equestrian style fence. And we're trying to maintain that look throughout Milton. I think it is a brand of Milton. It's something that we have. So I'd almost encourage people to put the wire on the outside.
Well, the wire is not, that's not a concern for me. Put it
Okay.
on the outside, put it on the inside.
But the post would be on the
But the
outside too.
the post, and I'm thinking more residential. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about a working farm or a horse farm. But when you get into residential, if someone's doing that, the same way with opaque fences, the post should be on the inside and the outside that their neighbor, if it's a border that the neighbor sees, should be, I think, a smooth side, whether it's equestrian or opaque, when you're getting into, bordering residential. And I don't know how we do that, but and I don't know if
Yeah,
anybody
it's a
else
little
shares that
difficult to
concern.
do because if you put the post on the inside, then the wire goes on the inside, the boards go on the inside, then the fence, just equestrian style fence, is to have those posts on the outside. That is the true nature of an equestrian style fence. And we're just trying to strengthen it so we can maintain that look in the city of Milton, because I don't want to lose that brand in the city. It really is truly our brand at this point.
And one other question on the opaque fence. Let's say we still have ranch houses or older homes along Milton. If someone wants to build a pool in the back and they're going to be using an opaque fence, they generally join the side of the house and then they go back and they close if they're going to do an enclosure. Are we saying with this change that they can't have that because it's facing the road?
Correct. They would have to, they can have a stockade fence along the side, but the ones that face the road that's attaching to the house would have to be an equestrian style fence. You're not allowed to have an opaque fence facing
So
the
even
road.
in a subdivision, the same thing.
No,
Well,
in a
in a
subdivision, it's a little
subdivision.
different. Yeah, in a subdivision, it's a little different. I'm sorry. I'm thinking that you're thinking like on a major road.
But if
it's
I'm
similar.
out in the country and I've got a ranch house, I'm doing a pool in the back, I'd have to do the see-through, not the opaque fence connecting.
In the
and-
back, in the rear, you can have.
But the
opaque
side and the
fence.
back would be
Yeah.
the other style
front
fence.
and
Show
the-
that
not the
presentation
privacy.
again.
I don't,
With the red and the blue. Show that where it had the
Yeah,
red
that's
and the
what.
blue.
Yeah, you could pull that back up and show it.
Be good to see.
So if you had a pool over here, you can have opaque fence, the blue line, as long as it's, with the new text amendment, as long as there is enough rural view shed, more than 60 feet rural view shed in front of the opaque fence, and we don't see it, should be fine.
and I guess I'm just thinking existing homes.
Well, they'd be grandfathered.
But I mean, if they're going to build a new fence though, they're not.
Right.
And that's the question is, so if I'm putting a pool in the back, would that be something that they could apply for a variance?
Well, we just denied 3.
Okay, I'm just.
So yeah, they can apply for it,
But-
but the last 3 times they've been denied. So
Well, if I remember correctly, 2 of the 3 that were denied had not followed our procedure in the first place. They had built the fences without a permit. So they had taken it upon themselves to subject themselves to denial because they hadn't received approval prior to building it in the first place. But I think, Rick, I get your concern. You've got an existing homeowner, been here a long time. It's time to renew the fence. They've been here for 20 years and it's time to upgrade the fence. And they've had an opaque fence before because they were grandfathered in. So now they are subjected to they would, I think, be subjected to the new policy. And they have two options in my mind. They have an option to apply for a variance, which may or may not be denied prior to the building of the fence, or they have a landscaping solution, which you can create privacy with landscaping, which is kind of the look and feel of Milton too. So I think you're actually.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, if they've been here 20 years and they want to just put the same fence up they did before, that might be a case for a variance, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, because we do have people that they're living in their ranch home that was built in the 70s or the 80s, and they just bought it 5 years ago, and they're not going to tear it down and build a McMansion. They're going to live in the existing home. They may want to put a pool. So generally, you don't want people looking through to see your pool. I understand you could put up shrubs, but an application for a variance showing exactly what they're trying to do still is an option.
Yeah, you can apply for a variance.
I'll tell you, most people use vegetation.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Moore?
Yes, please. Chuba, just a clarification, please. I think this is perfect what I was looking for you have up, is it says the columns can be constructed of brick or masonry. So does that not include a stone fence? Or is that part of masonry?
Columns.
Pardon?
That's only for the columns. Brick or stone columns are acceptable.
So is masonry considered stone? Okay.
It is.
All right. Thank you. And then, yeah, that's all I had. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thanks, Shuba. We'll call the first item, Madam Clerk, and then we'll have comment.
Item F, consideration of RZ 21-19, consideration of a text amendment to modify fence and wall specifications, exemptions, section 64-212, agenda item number 22-041.
Thank you. Is there any public comment?
Yes, Mayor, there is.
Okay.
First, I have two that I have been asked to read into the record. The first one is Eric Couch at 1720 High Grove Club Drive. He stated, "I feel that there is a finished side and an unfinished side to a fence, and that there is a responsibility that falls on the city to enforce the rules regarding the finished side facing neighboring properties." The second is from Scott Couch at 1720 High Grove Club Drive. He stated, "I believe that to every fence there is a finished side and an unfinished side, and it is municipal code to have the finished side facing towards your neighbor." Next, I would like to call Joe Couch to the podium.
So having heard the explanation of the items here, I think my comments will best be suited under item number H or letter H.
Okay,
So we can wait till then.
okay, thank you.
Is that it?
That concludes on that item.
Okay. I would like to open up for a motion then.
I'd like to make a motion that we passed item number 22-041 with the change that the wire has to be the same color as the actual fence.
Second.
So the
be an
first
H.
item that you're going to do is RZ 21-19, which is, that's not.
Not included in that.
It's
Yeah,
not in that?
So is that in H, which is RZ 2121?
Yeah, it's the last item.
Okay.
It'll be the wire.
So just the gist of that again, please.
I'm sorry.
Just the gist of RZ RZ 21-19.
Correct. The fence and wall spec
Oh,
exemptions. Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so we didn't have a second, I don't think.
No, so.
Well, I'll second it.
Well, now we got
Or you
to,
would withdraw and restate.
so withdraw your second.
Yeah, you
Withdraw your
wanna
second.
withdraw.
I'm going to
Carol.
withdraw,
And I'm withdrawing my second.
Okay, now open it up.
make a motion that we pass 22-041 as read.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Jacobus with a second from Councilmember Morrig to approve agenda item number 22-041. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. If the city clerk will please stay on the next item.
Item G, consideration of RZ 21-20, consideration of a text amendment to Article 6, zoning text, district classifications and boundaries to amend sections on fencing. Agenda item number 22-042.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve agenda item number 22-042.
Is there any public comment?
Not on this item, no.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion from Councilmember Moore and a second from Councilmember Cookerly for agenda item, to approve agenda item number 22-042. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. If the city clerk will please stay on the next item.
Consideration of RZ 21-21, consideration of a text amendment to update the definition of fence equestrian with exhibits, section 64-1, agenda item number 22-043.
Okay, is there any public comment?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
First, I would like to call Joe Couch to the podium.
Open the tray. No, Greg.
And flip up the, there you go.
All right, my name is Joe Couch. I live at 1720 High Grove Club Drive. And tonight I actually get to cross an item off my bucket list. I've met in person the lady behind all the automated telephone messaging systems, and she's doing an impeccable job here tonight announcing the agenda for us. I believe the city council would be making a mistake by setting a bad precedent by voting to change the city code from requiring the finished side of a fence to face outward to taking the position that there is no finished side of a fence. To be clear, I'm only referring to the equestrian fence with the wire mesh, not fences without. I don't have an objection to equestrian style fences. I just have an objection to where that wire mesh resides on the fence, and when considering what side is finished and not. When thinking of these fences in a truly rural or agricultural setting, this may not seem like that big of a deal, but the problem is that for many of us, these fences aren't just seen from a car window as we pass by at 40 miles an hour. They are being built in our neighborhoods next door to us. Recently, my neighbor built one of these fences 30 feet from my door where I enter and leave each day. So approximately from me to the wall behind me is where this fence is, and I am the reason this change to the city code is being considered. When the fence went up, I notified the city it was in violation of the city code, as the inside of the fence was clearly facing out toward my neighboring property. Several emails were exchanged, and a meeting was held with the city manager and director of community development. It was during this exchange that the city realized it had a problem. The city had failed to enforce this particular code for many years, as indicated by the fact that throughout the city, there are many fences that violate this code. To sweep this failure under the rug, they are now proposing to just say it doesn't matter anymore which side of the fence the wire mesh is on. How can this be tolerated? When the rules aren't working out for you, you just change them? Is this any way to serve and protect our citizens? Now, I brought with me some pictures of these fences from both sides. Can any of us look at these pictures and honestly say that both sides are essentially the same? Honestly. If not, and we admit that they are in fact different, then one side must of necessity be preferred over the other. I'd like to take this opportunity to clarify that it doesn't matter if the fence is painted or not, as you can see on the second page. And I'll flip over to that. The wire mesh remains visible in either case, especially when the wire mesh is highlighted in the evening under car headlights as you pull into your driveway. I say this from experience. Now, usually a picture is worth 1,000 words, but in this case, it's kind of hard to see from this picture. But I invite you all to follow me home tonight and pull into my driveway and look at the chain link fence that's been essentially constructed next to my driveway. To make matters worse, over time, leaves and pine needles inevitably become stuck between the fence rail and the wire mesh, creating an even more unsightly appearance, which should be reserved for the inside. That's what you see here in this picture. And I can honestly say I did not modify this fence in any way. I did not get my kids to go over there and jam a bunch of pine needles in it. That's just how the pine needles naturally fell off the trees. And if you go around the city, you'll see this everywhere. It is quite unsightly. This, I must say, is my principal concern. And in hearing some of the back and forth that went on during the question period, I wanted to just state my opinion on, I'm not here to argue against, I know that there's a code to have the wire mesh on the outside of a fence for when those fences are put around pools, and I'm not taking an issue with that per se, but I haven't ever met a child that would be unable to climb over either side of this fence. So to say that putting the wire mesh on the outside somehow makes the fence impenetrable and unclimbable is kind of ridiculous. But again, I'm not here to argue that point. And the other thing I would point out that none of us have considered yet is the mesh type. We've talked about color, but there's a lot of different meshes. You can go to the hardware store and get what's called hardware cloth, which could be considered a wire mesh, and that's about 1/2 inch square. So is that appropriate? Is barbed wire appropriate? Some form of barbed wire? What is the exact kind of wire mesh that we're talking about here? This is my last paragraph, and I'll close with this. It says, Municipal Code 64212.4, paragraph B states, walls and fences constructed along all property lines shall be constructed with a finished side toward the neighboring property. It was written to protect neighboring properties. It was not written to protect the person building the fence. It was written to protect those who observe the fence from the outside. It is the opinion of those people that matters. If those people don't care, then so be it. But if it does matter to them, then it is incumbent upon the city to enforce the code. Unfortunately, we now see the city attempting to change the code to remove their responsibility to enforce it. To say there is not a finished side to a fence when wire mesh is applied to one of those sides is simply absurd. I urge the city council to reject this proposal. Furthermore, I urge the city to do their job and enforce the codes that we have available to make our city the place where we all want to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Yes, sir. I would like to call Scott Reese to the podium.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm Scott Reese, Bromwell Reese & Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia, 30004. Tonight, speaking of the fences, many of the fences that we're required to put up around The stormwater detention facilities and around pools, from a functionality standpoint, the wire has to be on the outside. It's not to keep kids who went through a gate from climbing out. It's to keep them outside of the pool and the stormwater structure. So from a functionality standpoint, it requires it be on the outside. I think we're spending probably a lot of time on a section that should be handled by a private HOA. I don't know that it's the function of the government necessarily to get into the aesthetics of neighbors and fences. I think that would be better handled privately between the neighbors and their HOA. Most of my fences are of a livestock variety, so it is necessary for the boards to be on the inside where when the animals push against. So I really, I'm going to have to disagree with the person before. I didn't see stark differences in the outlook, but from a functional standpoint, if the fence is for function, maybe it's keeping the dogs in. And as far as the wire, on the pools and the stormwater facilities, we're required to put a non-climb. So the space is small enough that someone could not put their foot in, which would be, so if the board was on the outside, they could easily put their foot on the board and use it as a climbing, just like a ladder. But on the outside, we're separating it out. So I think you're on the right track. Staff got this one completely correct. This is not a place where we need to go in and start creating rules and laws unnecessarily. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Any more public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, so I will close public comment and open up Councilmember Cookerly.
Yep, so thank you. Having had lots of fences with a lifetime of having horses and having them a variety of different ways, and also having neighbors that have built them along their property line, which affected us in different ways. A couple of thoughts. One, first of all, this is a nice landscape job. And I assume you've planted this, which is what most everybody does with a neighbor fence, so that it'll grow up and you'll be able to enjoy your landscaping. We all have neighbors, and so we make accommodations. However, one thing that hasn't been brought up tonight is you can make any fence finish on both sides, if that's your issue, by just putting boards on the opposite side, like on your side. You would be able to finish that with 4-board, paint it, and it would look like the other side. And a lot of people do that. So it is an option if you are thinking you don't have the finished side and you want the same look that's on the other side, you have that option. So that's just something to consider. I don't think that, I think staff is in the right direction because people have a variety of reasons for which way the fence should go.
Any other discussion? Okay. Councilmember Moore?
Yeah, I guess the only, I see a little bit of differentiation. I know Bob talked to us about, we want it to look like an equestrian fence, therefore the post should be on the outside. But I also understand the homeowner who I'm guessing is inside a subdivision without having the post on their side. This is not necessarily a functional fence for horses or livestock. That's when I think aesthetics, you get into aesthetics and the look of a fence. And most homeowner associations do have rules, especially opaque fences. We've had lawsuits going on those because someone put the structure out towards their neighbor instead of putting the finished side. And I think what I heard the gentleman come up and talk, he's basically saying he wouldn't object to what you're saying, Carol, as long as his neighbor put the boards on that side too, so it's finished. But I don't think it should be, well, if you don't like what your neighbor did, you need to supplement that by building and adding the fences yourself.
I don't think you should have to do what, no, well, I would disagree with that. But to what Mr. Reese said, Is it our function to dictate this? I mean, I think that, I just don't see that, because I think that people should have the option to do whatever, and if the HOA supersedes it, so be it, or if neighbors decide. I don't know, I just don't know that this is a place for government at this level.
No, I think it's more Milton problems, right? We have variety of people that live in neighborhoods that are next to rural areas, that are next to 3-acre lots, that are next to this or that. And I think it's important that we do leave the option up to the homeowner. And I guess, Robin, my question is, can an HOA have their own rules and regs when in regards to the fencing?
That's correct. The HOA trumps although keep in mind, not every subdivision has an active HOA. So it just throws in another kink to the thought process.
I mean, because it's hard to create rules for one set of individuals and not on the others when they both have both arguments make perfect sense. So open it. Councilmember Moore.
Just to comment, Robin, just to clarify. So the way staff has written this is basically it becomes a discussion between two neighbors rather than the city having to weigh in. By us suggesting that either side can be considered finished, we've resolved the problem from the city having to have an authority over that. There are state codes, to Mr. Reese's point about water retention and or safety around pools. I think that definition we don't need to worry about. So the rest of this really becomes a neighborly discussion, and the city doesn't have to weigh in by the way the staff is suggesting the changes be made to the code.
Any other discussion? Okay, I'd open for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item 22-043 with the change that the wire has to match the color of the fence.
Any second on that?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Jacobus and a second from Councilmember Cookerly to approve agenda item number 22-043 with his suggested changes that the wire color must match the color of the fence. Is there any discussion on that before we move forward? Did that cause any issues? Councilmember Johnson? Do you have any-
Is galvanized and untreated, or like the pressure-treated wood, is that matching?
I think what Councilmember Jacobus is saying is that the wire and the wood have to be the same color. But
they're
to your
painted.
point,
If they're
if they're
painted.
painted, you can keep it.
What if you're putting a new
Galvanized.
wire, galvanized wire
Assuming
on a
that,
black fence?
I'm assuming that stays. You're saying you have to.
No,
Okay.
I'm not saying, that just stays.
Should we re-clarify that, Ken?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Because I was assuming that would stay too. Okay. So can you withdraw your?
I'm doing a lot of withdrawing.
You're getting too antsy, Councilmember Cookerly.
I doubt that.
Withdraw your second.
Oh, I've withdrawn it, thank
Okay.
you. But I was just the second.
Do I withdraw or do I start?
You can just say withdraw and then just start it.
Withdraw, okay, and we're going to say that I recommend that we approve agenda item 22-043 with the exception that the wording on the wire used can either be plain galvanized or match the existing color of the fence.
The painted
Or
color.
painted color.
Painted
Not
color.
may, should
Sure.
match.
That's good. And I second that.
Okay.
Well done.
All right, Councilmember Cookerly seconded. So I have a motion from Councilmember Jacobus and a second from Councilmember Cookerly to approve agenda item 22-043 with his recommended changes. Okay, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed, nay.
Okay, that was 6-1. If the city clerk will move on to new business, please stay on the first item.
Item A is consideration of an intergovernmental agreement for automatic aid among the Milton Fire Rescue Department and the cities of Johns Creek, Roswell, Sandy Springs, and Alpharetta. Agenda item number 22-066. Gabe Ben Musa.
All right. Mayor, Council, good evening. Let me see if I can switch
Somebody help me with this? Okay, so before you is the is an automatic aid agreement, intergovernmental agreement between the City of Milton, our neighbors, Alpharetta, Sandy Springs, Roswell, and Johns Creek. I'm going to give you a brief overview. So the current situation is we have an automatic agreement with Alpharetta. We work in tandem, we work as one. We run into each other's cities, we support each other automatically. With Roswell also, we have an automatic aid agreement also, specifically for the area near Arnold Mill with Station 26. And we have limited automatic aids with Cherokee and Forsyth County, and those we have to send out a request. It doesn't operate as automatic, but only for the border areas. Anything else outside of those border areas, we have to go through the channels requesting the resources. So the fire chiefs, the 5 cities fire chiefs, we came together. We built a sort of a consortium, and we're working together to see how we can support each other. And one of it was having an automatic aid agreement, regardless of borders. If we had a major disaster in Milton, no questions asked, we just request they show up, versus a mutual aid agreement, which require a battalion chief to call me and ask me if can we call help. Then in turn, I'll call the fire chief of that city. Can you send us these resources? With an automatic aid, it would be all built in. So regardless of what we've got going on, we know that we have resources coming. It also eliminates the needs for us to have specialized equipment, for example, technical rescue team or hazardous materials teams, because we can rely on our neighbors to work together, so we don't have to have those resources or invest in those resources because we have them next door. So some background, NFPA recommends having 17 firefighters on scene for a 2,000 square foot residential structure. We currently staff between 15 and 19 on the shift, depending on vacations, leave. We rely a lot for that second alarm because pretty much all our resources are dedicated on that first alarm. So our second alarm is coming from other cities. Plus, we also have to backfill our stations so they can respond to calls in the city. So this gives you an idea of the 5 cities. You can see Milton with our 4 cities, with our 4 stations. And then this is what we're talking about, this entire area of the 5 cities all the way to Sandy Springs. Our goal in the future to hopefully, we're working on CAD to CAD communications so that no matter what, we can see where the units are located. We're already on AVL. Alpharetta is going to automatic vehicle locator, meaning the closest unit responds to the call regardless of jurisdictional boundaries. There's a lot of times where Alpharetta Station 5 is a lot closer, for example, to a call in Milton than one of our units. So the goal is to get the resource there to take care of the emergency, take care of our citizens as soon as possible. So this model has been employed in large metro areas. For example, Phoenix is well known. They have 28 cities on one automatic aid. Essentially, they operate as one dispatch. They have the same operational guidelines, which that's what we're working through. We have a sub-working group of operations, and they're looking at consolidating all our response guidelines throughout the 5 cities. So no matter where you go, it's the same thing. It's seamless. So we're trying to create that seamless response. We already trained together. We already worked together. So I think this is sort of just the final seal that we're officially have an automatic aid that benefits all 5 communities in North Fulton area. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Councilman Moore?
Just a quick question. Do we currently have, I know we talked at one time about having our radio system so we could actually hear cross jurisdiction. Have we made those changes, or is that something that's part of this?
So there's several parts to that. We have the North Fulton Radio Authority. We have several cities on that, but Johns Creek is not part of that.
Okay.
Also the dispatch, we have 3 different dispatches. We have the Chatcom, which services Johns Creek and Sandy Springs. And then we have the Roswell dispatch that services just Roswell. And then we have the Alpharetta dispatch, which is Alpharetta and Milton. Currently, the Alpharetta and Roswell, they can talk to each other. Matter of fact, they're due for upgrade of the CAD, and they're going both for the same RFP, meaning they want to get the same CAT system so that we have that seamless integration. The Chatcom, I know that the contract, I think, is up in 3 years. I think we're discussing this, the opportunity maybe for Johns Creek and Sandy Springs, maybe to join Roswell if that contract, but that's going to be a decision obviously they'll have to make. With that, the goal is to have 2 dispatch systems that can serve as backup for each other and then service the North Fulton cities. And it would be really, that when you talk about that integration, that of response, it would benefit the cities.
Thanks for
So the only one I'll add, one of our Cherokee County, they have their system is encrypted, so we can't talk to them. So when they show up to our call, they have to switch it. They have to switch this little switch, so that allows them to talk to us, or we have to give them radios on the scene. That's just the route they choose to go.
It sounds like you're making progress,
Yes.
especially if we can link Roswell in and then potentially some of the
Yes.
other cities. Thanks for the update.
Councilmember Moore?
Thanks. Chief, I think this is a great plan that continues to solidify the partnerships that we are seeing across city boundaries that I think has served us well in some of the crises that we've faced even in the last year. Just a quick question about hierarchy. This is probably a no-brainer, but so there would never be a time likely that we would be a first call to somewhere like Sandy Springs. It
No.
would go,
Oh, yeah.
closer.
Yes.
And then the backfill comes from the next nearest for the north.
Correct. I mean, for us to go Sandy Springs for a call, they will have to have a 5 or 6 alarm call before they get pulled down there. I think most likely it would get pulled mostly to Roswell, Alpharetta, Johns Creek, if that, because Johns Creek has also mutual aid with Gwinnett County. To the same, Sandy Springs has also mutual aid with Atlanta, Otto on a certain border areas, but they have also mutual aid. So the likelihood of us going down there, of even Sandy Springs coming here, it's either we have a large natural disaster and all our resources are committed and they come help us, or we have a massive incident. So what we're doing is we're pre-building those response plans or those units. They will be predetermined in CAD so that when our incident commander says, give me a first alarm, dispatch knows exactly where to call those from based on their location. Where currently right now, we have to tell dispatch what units to get from where. So the 5 chiefs are working with the CAD and the dispatch, and we're building those box alarms all the way up to 10 alarms. So everything will be predetermined in that plan.
Fantastic. So is there, thinking about the equipment sharing that you talked about as well, does this then sort of, it may already exist, I just don't know whether it does or not. Does it force like a board of chiefs that sit down and talk about, I've got this equipment, I've got like supplemental air.
Yes, we
or
have.
I've got a fire training. You don't have to build one because I've got one.
Yes.
How often is that a board that exists today? So the chiefs
We
can
just
talk about-
so we formed our North Fulton Fire Chiefs,
Outstanding.
and it's not a legal entity or anything. It's just we meet monthly. We have priorities. Certainly EMS is one of them, and ambulance service is one of those issues. But we created subgroups under us for operations, for training, for fire prevention. So the goal is to get all the cities to collaborate and help each other. If we have, like, for example, a massive apartment fire and requires investigation, our 2 investigators are not enough to dig out the scene. So now they're able to call and they will send some investigators to help, for example, with the scene. If we have a massive hazardous material spill, we're not equipped. We're just operations. We're not technician level to mitigate. We can early mitigation response, but then we would call Alpharetta Hazmat to respond. And that's already predetermined. One of the biggest achievements with the group, I'll touch on that, is we just implemented the Blue Card Incident Command for the entire 5 cities. So we just went through certification, meaning we'll all be speaking the same language when it comes to incident management. Same terminology, same language. We just finished all the chief officers. Now we're moving to the engine officers, the captains, and below. So that is a great type of collaboration. And then with training, instead of us, for example, hosting the same class with Roswell at the same time, now they're coordinating and saying, okay, you'll host, for example, Fire Officer 1, I'll host Fire Instructor 1. So there's good partnerships and savings also for each city, because some of those classes you have to pay instructors. So now we're helping each other out.
Fantastic. I look forward to an offline conversation with you that has to do with EMS response. I happen to be aware of a citizen recently that did a 911 call, and because they were close to our border with Cherokee, 911 Cherokee responded. And although the response was timely, they redirected the call from Cherokee to Alpharetta, and Alpharetta dispatched an ambulance when we had a fire station that was closer. So it was just a coordination thing. I look forward to.
Yeah, if I can get the details of that, I'll be happy to
forward
look
through
into
that.
it.
But it's a great example of how the coordination worked.
Yes.
It was just more, I think it's a border issue.
Yes,
But we'll-
typically the dispatchers will send, for example, Cherokee, get them going, and then they'll get us going. And it depends if they called from a cell phone. Sometimes when it pings, it will go.
That's what
to
it
the
was.
closest
It pinged
dispatch.
off the wrong tower.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I look forward to following up with you.
Okay. Any other questions for Chief? All right. Do we have any public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay, so I will open up for a motion.
Make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that we approve agenda item number 22-066.
Second?
Okay, I'm going to give that one to Councilmember Johnson. So I have a motion from Councilmember Morrig and a second from Councilmember Johnson to approve agenda item number 22-066. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. If the city clerk will please say on the next item.
Consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to AKP Butchers LLC, doing business as New York Butcher and Wine Shop, 12635 Crabapple Road, Suite 120, Milton, Georgia, 30004. Agenda item number 22-063. Ms. Bernadette Harville.
Good evening again. I just want to take a moment to make a correction to the response for Councilmember Jacobus earlier. I found the original plans that were submitted with the alcohol beverage license for the floor plan. It does include what they're calling a wine bar, so I just want to show you where that would be located within the floor plans. And just to clarify, it is still in compliance with the floor plan square footage requirements, but I just did want to clarify that it did have that there. So right here, they have what they're calling their wine bar. You'd walk in, I believe the entrance is down this way. They have their retail area. Here's where the kitchen is to cook and prepare the food. It's a good portion of that section of the store. Here's seating and more seating at their wine bar.
Where's the butcher shop?
Where it says retail area,
I think retail.
the front left.
So that's the butcher area.
And this is seating as
For that
well. This is actually, let me get my bearings right. I haven't looked at this in a while.
Now,
So there's your
Bernadette.
shelving for the groceries. This is more shelving for grocery type items. Yes, sir.
this is in response to what we did in our work sessions prior. I mean, this is council driven, correct?
Correct. This is the concept that was given to us, and we built a consensus together on what we would like this license type to look like based on this concept, in addition to two other concepts that were before us at the time. It is just taken between construction and us getting all the laws in place, this much time for them to actually be able to apply.
Got it. Thank you. And is this what we currently have under moratorium till future? Is that right?
Correct. Any future applicants would currently not be able to apply for this type of license. We did make that listing of those who had inquired or had actual paper applications in place prior to any of the moratoriums being in place, and the New York Butcher Shop was one of those.
Got it. So Ken, this meets all its requirements, correct? Okay. Okay.
We'll make sure we clarify that.
Any questions for Bernadette? Okay.
Not from Bernadette,
Okay.
for
Discussion.
council.
Yep, go for it.
So I had a concept in mind when I hear butcher shop about this, and I hear retail, and then I have a chance to see this, and this is not consistent with what I had in my mind. And without the benefit of the applicant here to answer some of those questions directly, if the council were to come to the conclusion that the appropriate thing to do is have a chance to have the applicant here to answer more questions, and we move toward a deferral, what does that do to the process? Does it back them up by Can we defer until our next meeting?
Yeah, it just backs the process up for the, of the deferral.
It doesn't require re-advertising and the whole bit where we have to have 30 days.
You've already had the mandated public hearing, so you're in decision only now, and so if you defer it, it'll be just.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And can we even deny this on a legal basis?
If they've satisfied your code, a good argument could be that they probably have an entitlement. But I do think there is an opportunity for dialogue, and there may be an opportunity to find out more, just to give you a comfort level as you do approve it, and maybe even ask them, some questions that may give you more comfort when you make that motion. And of course, remember, alcohol is for a year at a time. So you have plenty of time to next year, if you don't like this model or something's not working with this model further. So no problem asking some questions, but Mr. Mayor, your point is a fair one. Once they comply with our code, check all the boxes, there is an expectation that they have a right to.
I mean, we usually do have the applicant here, right, Bernadette, under alcohol?
We have not required it in the past. We
Right.
tell them they are welcome to come and share any information that they have, or if they would be asked questions, we can certainly recommend in the future that applicants be here for that, since we're having a few more questions, but we've never made it mandatory from our end.
Okay.
I would support what you suggested, Paul. Bernadette, what's the occupancy of this space?
I'm sorry, I cannot answer that.
Okay, I'd like
With
to
the
know that
information I
from the
have.
applicant. That would be great. Thank you very much.
I could take some notes to prepare them to.
Do they already have a CO for the space? Bernadette, when is their planned opening? We
All
know.
the questions you're asking are more community development driven, and unfortunately, I believe my community development team has left. So I can get answers to this if we're going to do something like a deferral. I can certainly I can take all the questions. So a CO issuance, occupancy limits, and I can get all that information prepared.
Yeah, I'd like to hear some things about their intention of whether it's going to be table service, hours of operation for table service. Will it be like a restaurant?
I can get all of this.
I'd like to see depicted the actual package sale area versus grocery. If it's being portrayed as a butcher shop, I'd like to better understand how that comes into play in the concept.
Or was this the presentation? Is this the package sales plus?
Yep.
Plus.
Yeah, so it's a big percentage alcohol.
10% is what they indicated would be consumption on site. That's correct.
Yeah, so consumption on site, but we look at what's being depicted here, I think what you said, Bernadette, the maximum space that could be given is 40% for
It's very
consumption on site.
technical. It's 60% must be devoted to the sales of craft beer and wine for consumption off premise, food preparation, or grocery sales, including shelving and display. So the kitchen would count into that. All those items would count into that.
Yeah.
60%. And
So it's
hearing
not-
that we're kind of mixing these together, I'll be sure to have a representative in the future from ComDev so we can kind of have all this kind of figured out.
I think this is an example of why we paused. Because when you look at some of the hard questions that staff has been asking themselves or that we have asked of staff, this is a mixed concept where I think we saw reason to take a hard look at code. It was a timing issue. This one happened to be submitted for review prior to our moratorium. So I get it. Are not entitled to stop their process, but we are entitled to ask a whole lot of hard questions that I don't at the moment have the answers to.
So one last question is, in this scenario, can you envision a way that they could just edit out being the butcher and have 60% off and 40% on premise?
Well, that was the original iteration of this license. We added the allowance for food and groceries to hopefully attract more businesses such as this. But just having the off-premise sales and alcohol consumption on site is still allowed here. The only one we had did close. So currently we don't have any. So if you were to make some changes, we wouldn't have a legacy business you'd be impacting at this time, that's something we can discuss. But before we did have one is why we didn't change it.
Okay. Interesting.
Councilmember Jacobus?
You know, I think you have to take into account that probably a butcher shop opening just as a butcher shop probably wouldn't fly. But yet, there's an awful lot of people that would like to have some of those services, especially when there's special functions that they're doing. And I think we have to be careful, because there's alcohol involved, about denying somebody that followed the rules, spent all this money, got ready, comes up with a new and different concept, and we shut it down. I am very uncomfortable with this.
Oh, yeah.
We're not shutting,
I have no
let me
inclination.
clarify, I have no intention of shutting this process down. I just have a lot of questions I need to have answered.
My
before
concern
I'm
is,
prepared.
though, if they have their CO and they're ready to go, how much are we costing them every day? And you talk about being difficult to do business with, that word gets out. And I don't think that's a good reputation for Milton to get, especially in two areas where part of our strategy is to drive business other than property taxes. And this is one great way to offset that. And I think we've got to be a little bit more friendly here. I think you've got the 1 year. If it doesn't work, you've got 1 year. We're not approving 1 million of these. We're approving one. Watch it and see how it works. Give it a shot.
I respect your position. I would offer in contrast that I think what I'm offering for consideration is a 1 week deferral, or, to our next meeting, or if it's 2 weeks out, that we have a next formal meeting where we can have the applicant here. And I hope that doesn't disrupt their business plan for opening with, with that.
You may be right. They may not be planning to open until summertime, for all I know.
As hot a topic as alcohol is for our community, I think that we need to make sure we get it right. And because we haven't had a chance to look as intimately as this one, because of the way the process has gone, where they were not subject to some of the other review until now, that I think it warrants a pause.
Councilmember Burrow?
I would agree with Councilmember Moore. And then I also feel if the owner was here, a lot of this conversation would be avoided. We'd be able to hash it all out this evening probably. But Bernadette, you had mentioned that they also own another facility like this in, was it South Carolina?
I believe it's North Carolina and South Carolina. When we originally first started talking, they had to get some of their numbers from those operations in order to tell us what their sales would be.
Okay, so when we engage with them, it would be helpful that they had kind of the numbers, maybe monthly or annually, just so we kind of see the percentages historically, what they've been for their other facilities.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Moore?
If we could include, or at least consider including, for new alcohol licenses, whether or not we've got we know when the CO, I mean, those to me are, if we look at a deferral, those type of things, I'd like to know, your point, are we impacting the business negatively? Because we're coming up with questions. It should help if they come, if we require them to come. But I'd like to have us be prepared to actually answer those questions for new facilities. If it's a reuse or somewhat change of ownership, those are really pretty much straightforward.
Let me check really quickly if they applied for a temporary. That application here. Oftentimes when we have a new business, they will apply for a temporary. So they would be actually serving while you are considering. But I don't see that in here right now. I can check on that though. But I'm going to create a checklist from this conversation to have all of that for you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't think any of us have any intention of denying this business, because I'm sure their build out's probably already done. And this is like their final step in the process. If it's a 2 week deferral, I think that's probably fine. But anything more than that, I'd probably have issues with.
I would only just add this, that typically obtaining the alcohol license before CO is the typical pattern, because you have to go to the state next and get theirs, and you have to have hours to get theirs. You have to set up with wholesalers and suppliers. They need to see that from us in the state. So typically I would think that the CO would not have been issued yet, but I don't know that would still be something that really dictates that timeline. I would just add that.
Oh, thank you.
Just a quick note, on their website, they say they're opening early spring 2020 or 2022.
They're a little bit
Okay.
ahead of it for us, probably getting all of that in line. Like I said, got to attend with the state and their timeline and the wholesalers.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we defer agenda item 22-063 until our next regular meeting.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Moore and a second from Councilmember Cookerly to defer agenda item number 22-063 to our next regular meeting. Any,
Third,
it's like February.
23rd. Is Wednesday the 23rd, right?
Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday one.
Oh, okay.
Is there any discussion on this? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that is 6-1. Thank you, Bernadette.
Absolutely. I won't be here on the 23rd, so.
Get to.
I won't be here either, so. Councilmember Moore.
Oh, boy.
Okay. If the city clerk will please say on the next item.
Item D, consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to Audette Hospitality Group, Inc., doing business as Trey Lunas, 12635 Crabapple Road, Suite 320, Milton, Georgia, 30004. Agenda item number 22-064. Ms. Bernadette Harville.
Again, Trace Lunas, they are going to the same suite that we've seen previously held by Tierra Imar in Cairns. They are a full-service restaurant qualifying as an eating establishment for consumption on premise of wine, beer, and distilled spirits, including those Sunday sales and an alcoholic beverage caterer license.
Okay. Any questions for Bernadette? I open for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 22-064.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Morg to approve agenda item number 22-064. Second from Councilmember Cookerly. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. The city clerk will please say on the next item.
Item E, consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to 12690 Crabapple LLC, doing business as Welcome Foods Crabapple, 12690 Crabapple Road, Milton, Georgia, 30004. Agenda item number 22-065. Ms. Bernadette Harville.
This is Welcome Foods Crabapple, going in new ownership in the Shell Station on the corner here, Crabapple Road and 372. Off-premise sales only of wine and beer, including Sunday sales. They are in compliance.
Okay. Any questions for Bernadette? Councilmember Moore?
Bernadette, this is a change in ownership of the business, but not of the property, correct? The property ownership stay the same, it's just a new business doing business on the property?
I honestly don't have that answer. I apologize.
That's okay.
This is the owner that would be responsible for the alcohol license, who owns the store. I'm not sure about the actual physical land.
Okay. I think that's what it is. Only because we
I'm going to
know
work closely with community development moving forward
Yeah.
to get you all these answers.
there's a lot of community development questions that would come if that
They're
were.
going to love that they're part of this.
All right, thank you.
Okay, open up for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve agenda item 22-065.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Moore and a second from Councilmember Verhoff to approve agenda item number 22-065. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. And we'll go on to mayor and council reports. Any council members want to say anything before we move to staff reports? Councilmember Moore.
Once again, I had the distinct pleasure last week to do some community service with our Cub Scout Pack 3000. We had the services of the mayor, our illustrious Tammy Lowett, her lookalike Tracy Wilds. We had Captain Sean McCarty with us, and we had the illustrious Bernadette Harville, who did her very best Steve Krokoff impression, only quietly, unbeknownst to the community who was here assembled. But we had 10 Boy Scout, or 10 Cub Scouts here earning a badge. We conducted a mock City Hall meeting with three cases being heard, and it was spectacular. I mean, the services of Tammy were spectacular in putting it forward. I would tell you, sadly, we were outshadowed by the illustrious celebrity of Captain Sean McCarty, who has to his claim to fame a television appearance on wildest police chases back in, I think he said maybe the 90s. And the fact that he was packing heat that night, he's clearly set himself apart from the rest of us. So a lot of questions about breaking into homes and responses with a SWAT team, those kinds of things. But the boys did achieve their badge as a result of our cooperation. It was a wonderful event. We look forward to hosting more of those in the future for those scouts that need to earn that badge. Second, I'd like to thank our city manager and Chief Austin, who leapt into action this week. We had a late request from the community to do a police blue light escort for Cambridge High School, whose swim and dive team competed at the state level this week on, I think it was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So there was a wonderful police escort from the high school to 400 to get them in the height of traffic on Thursday evening. It was either Thursday or Friday. And that was just a wonderful send-off that they greatly appreciated, and they much appreciated the well wishes of the city. So I gave them a great send-off. I look forward to them coming to celebrate in front of us, hopefully with a proclamation of their success, because I know there were a number of school records that were set that weekend, as well as some podium finishes. So spectacular performance by our Cambridge High School students.
Their staff reports. Okay. Turn it over to Sarah.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Just got a couple January numbers for Public Works, and then wanted to introduce a new employee as well, and then show a project progress. So some of the things we track for the month are the number of service requests we get in. So those are calls or web forms filling out requests for work within the right-of-way. So for January, we had 6 of those. And then internally, we generated 109 work orders. Some of those could have been an overlap from the service request, and completed 82 work orders in the month of January. We had 1 emergency work order, and that particular one was a pothole on Cox Road that was causing a lot of flat tires. So our crews came in and fixed it to address that issue. Another thing we track is the amount of debris we remove from the right-of-way. And so we typically empty that dumpster about once a month. So our numbers for January were about 5 tons of debris that were removed. And then lastly, our quarterly gravel road maintenance is underway. We do that in January, April, July, and October. So that is our work that's underway right now. It's wrapping up the quarterly cycle. And the picture there on the right is the motor grader in operation, just to illustrate that we do this on a program basis every quarter. Our winter weather event we had in January, the picture on the bottom right is from that event on Deerfield Parkway in the city. And we had a great volunteer group from the city staff of Public Works, Parks, and Community Development. All had staff members that helped out with clearing the roads and treating hot spots with our gravel salt mix. And then lastly, for the month of January, we have a new hire, and he's here tonight to say hello. And his title is the Engineering Project Manager. So he's going to be taking over the engineering phases of all the good projects we have going on. He's a professional engineer as well as a professional traffic operations engineer. And his name is Rob Del Ross, and I will let him say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'll be quick. Sarah, thank you for trusting me in hiring me and bringing me aboard here. I'm very happy. Steve and Stacy, thank you for creating a positive, uplifting kind of teamwork atmosphere. I've been very impressed in my 4 weeks here. It's been amazing. There's a lot of longtime employees here that have been here since day one, and I'm happy to be able to continue great work here in Public Works. Just for the rest of you, transportation is my world. I've been here in Metro Atlanta working on design, project management, program management in transportation for over 20 years. I'm happy to be able to help Sarah push projects forward through delivery and give you projects that you'll be happy and proud of, and that will continue the high quality level of effort that we expect from the city of Milton. Questions on transportation projects, things that we're building out of T-SPLOS, things that we may not even be paying for that the state DOT is working on. All those questions, please send them to Sarah and I. Thanks.
Well, thank you for
Welcome.
coming.
Thank you.
Welcome very
You
much.
surprised me one day when I was going by Sarah's office. It's like,
Yeah.
it's where I got to go in, and I go up the stairs, and I'm like, hold on.
That's not Sarah. Ask Sarah how many times she's walked in her old office, expecting it to be her old office.
That happened to me on Friday, because I was walking by and I was going to talk to Sarah, and it's like, oh, that's not Sarah. Where's Sarah?
Welcome.
Corner office for Sarah, I take it? Sort of.
Sort of, yeah. I had one other slide to show. Wanted to show this, Greg had posted this on Facebook already, but wanted to show the before and after of what we have going on Clarity Road. If you'll remember, we closed it nearly a year ago. Some railing was damaged, and the railing was not structurally attached to the bridge, so we did an inspection and then looked at some repair recommendations to see what made sense, and it's nearly complete. We've got the bridge deck cleaned and a weathered guardrail installed, and it is definitely more structurally sustained railing, and really turned out good. So we're hoping to get the final touches on the approaches and get this opened back up pretty soon. That's all I have, and if there's any specific questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Questions for Sarah? Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks.
All right, Greg, see what you got.
I know. Lucky me, or unlucky you that I get to be last, and lucky you that I talk really fast. So I will try to. But this is mine.
Hey, before you talk really fast, I had neglected to thank you as well. Greg leapt into action as well and got a fast social media posting up on behalf of the Cambridge swimming and dive team, so that the community was aware of their competition. So
Yeah,
thanks.
Go Bears, yeah.
Yeah.
And Eagles, and all the different animals. So all our animals at least. So maybe not some other ones. Maybe not hornets, maybe not, but that's okay. Forgive, this might sound like a broken record for some of the people who've had me here, because I say it every time, but you can't talk about what my department does without talking about basically every department. I'll spare you for the most part, but really, again, it's my pleasure to kind of share the good news of what different things are happening, whether it's police, fire, all 9 yards. But a few things I did want to talk about that are keeping us busy, because it kind of speaks to larger things. One's the local road safety plan, which we briefed you, Sarah, I think, briefed you on a few weeks ago. So last Monday, last week was a big week. We unveiled Jen Hartwick had a great video starring our police chief and public works director that explained the plan, and we had 3 really successful public forums. And we're planning a bunch of other stuff with social media, other opportunities to be engaged in the process. And one of the reasons I bring this up is that, one, it's ongoing, but the key for us as a communication and engagement department is to have the citizens involved every step of the way. And that's partly my job, to make sure they're informed, they have a chance to be engaged, whether it's on a social media post or whether it's a forum, that whole thing. So that's kind of something that's ongoing, that's important for us. Another thing that we just talked about today is the Plant Milton initiative. We have, that's something we're going to be involved every step of the way, because that's about, the whole point of that is to involve the community, to have them, encourage them and educate them and all that sort of thing. So there's going to be even more public rollout in the next few days, but that's something we're trying to build that momentum. Separately, we're embarking on a branding, placemaking, and marketing initiative for the city, which the friends of the 2040 comprehensive plan, as well as the strategic plan, may recognize. So broadly speaking, this aims to clearly articulate in words, messaging, graphics, signage, and more Milton's special identity. So it's about forming cohesive sense of place, building community, and showcasing the best of what and who we are. So, and again, this citizen serves our citizens firstly, but also supports our business community. So it's important that we do it right. That's why we're going to have an RFP hopefully soon with my partner, Anita Jupin, to bring kind of this expertise to really have a sound strategy. But the important thing for that is that it's not going to be we're not going to just hand this off. It's going to be a partnership. We're going to work really closely with whomever we bring in so they really understand Milton and understand what we're all about. So, and also whatever the strategy makes sense for us to execute. Much sooner than that, and I have a council member here to thank for this, we're going to plan a much smaller targeted in-house campaign related to our equestrian community. The goal is that to hopefully do what we can, as much as we can't buy horse farms left and right, to really hopefully save some of those horse farms in our community so we can protect that field. So another thing too is I'm going to divide, next time we meet, you're lucky to hear from me again about the National Community Survey. So I won't go into that too much, but I did want to touch on one thing that we're doing that relates to council specifically. One of the cool things, when we switched our video streaming service to YouTube, there was a lot of benefits for that, for space, certain things, the presentation. But the thing is, we lost kind of that one-stop shop where you could get the videos and the agendas and all in one place. So we have in the works, it's already out a little bit, a one-stop shop calendar for all council meeting material. So you have everything in one place. You go to the calendar, you can click on that here and there. That's a little bit of a tedious process, but we're about, I want to say, a tenth of the way there, and some of it's actually linkable now. So, I'm going to spare you for going too much further, but I did want to just point out a few metrics that we have going on. The first is, there he goes, is our social media. So you may know that we have 9 social media accounts. The biggest one is our city's Facebook page. We have, for a city of about 40,000 people, we have nearly 14,000 followers. Of what's a fun fact that nearly about 74% are females. So go women. So and they reach up just under 400,000 people annually. So reaches how many, kind of the echo chamber. So I think really that's something that's been kind of growing and kind of consistent, but for a city of our size, I think that's pretty strong. And then we have the engagement, the support, and the kind of community we've built around this is always encouraging. So it's amazing. We put up a post and 10 people say thank you and things like that. That's not like every other city. So we're trying to build this small town feel in, with the city, everything the city has to offer. In the last, I had to pick a 28-day period because that's how Facebook did it. Our reach on Facebook rose 18%, while our Facebook likes were about 30% in that same time. So that sometimes those numbers will vary from month to month because you can't always have everything high reaching, but it's a good indication that we're doing a pretty good job. But one thing we're especially, which was a focus on, is Instagram. This is year over year, this numbers you'll see here. Our year over year Instagram, we wanted to kind of beef that up because we know different audiences people are going to that. And we've seen, it's not a typo, over 38% jump in our Instagram page, reach, which is how many people are reaching, and visits kind of page to page, that's over 30%. So those are huge jumps. Realistically, you want maybe a 5% jump would be nice. But so that's a lot bigger, and it's a lot of effort on that, especially Jen Hartwick, who works a lot on that too. I think, so credit to her. The last thing I want to touch on is our website. So as you may recall, we've kind of done some tweaks. We've also put a lot of new content on our website. So again, especially for websites, because people are getting information so many places, the goal is, at least minimal goal, is to stay even. You're hoping to have some growth. But there are 2 measures I'm going to explain what these are that we've really seen kind of substantial year-over-year jumps. The first is something called users, which is the number of people, or really it's devices that come to your website. And the one thing to count from here doesn't include, we've rolled out a whole bunch of applications like CityView, ClearGov, things like that. Those aren't counted in these. So we've actually it's actually much higher than this in terms of year over year. But at the same time, we've seen almost a 24% increase in the number of people who have come to our website, which again is a huge jump. And that's a lot of hard work. So I think we probably put about 5 times as much content that we did maybe 2 years ago, sort of thing. So that's very specific. Another thing is page views. That's how many clicks on things. And that's gone up about over 28% a year over year. Again, it doesn't count for everything, but it does reflect why it kind of circles back to why we're doing this. We're not just producing information for the sake of it. We're trying to promote the information to inform people, educate people, and connect people. But when you put people out there, and also so they trust us, and if they're coming back to us, that's the indication that they do trust us. So So that's about it for me. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
Sure.
Any questions for Greg before we adjourn to executive session?
Great
Thank
numbers.
you very much.
All right. I will open up for a motion to adjourn into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Moore and a second from Councilmember Moore to adjourn into executive session to discuss land acquisition personnel or potential litigation. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Amy says she hung out with Mom today. She just wanted to pass the information along.
Give me this bump, Susan.
Oh, that is important.
What? This mean you're right, briefly.
This is a MasterCard.
That's awesome. Oh.